Well, go for it. Go for it.
And the other one. Proceed.
Well, folks. Here we are on this amazing day, on this day of awareness. We had an exciting day yesterday. First, I'd like to. All right. So, how's everyone feeling after yesterday? Yesterday, we had quite the bombshell. We had a UAP congressional hearing here in the United States of America, and it wasn't how we had expected it to be. I mean, there was a press conference that I was lucky enough to watch leading into it that was very dramatic and used verbiage that was kind of super sus, unlike any press conference I've ever seen before. So even that didn't prepare me for what ended up happening yesterday. And we're going to talk about this today. We've all gathered here. How's everyone feeling about it so far? Like, let's get some first thoughts. Let's get it out. Let's get at it.
They're hiding the flying saucers from us. Not only the flying saucers, the electrogravitic energy source that could destroy the oil industry. I'm looking forward to the stock price of ExxonMobil being cut by 98%. I'm looking forward to that day, which hopefully will be soon when we all have our free.
Why specifically ExxonMobil? Because they're the conglomerates?
Well, they're just the one everyone thinks of when you think of a big oil company. You think of ExxonMobil.
Why is that, do you think? Because of the big merger that happened, right?
Yeah, well, it's a monopoly. And
was that in 2001, 2000?
Well, this is what we were saying earlier before you got the button, but we'll repeat it for the record, I guess. But it was the idea that the real scandal here is not the fact that there are aliens. I mean, everybody knows there's aliens. But the real scandal is that there's this breakaway civilization that seems to have monopolized this exotic technology and has used it in the shadows to oppress the governments and oppress the people, really, for seems like more than 100 years. And you hear, I don't know if you guys have watched actually Stephen Greer's documentary that he was putting out, the one about the lost century. But most of that documentary is not about UFO. I mean, a large part of it is, but most of it's about the suppression of free energy devices, free energy technology. And if you look into it, it's like the amount of people who've had their lives ruined in various ways, who've either been bought out, threatened, or have outright been assassinated, which has happened a number of times when people were going to bring out some kind of technology that would disrupt the petrodollar oil energy monopoly. That's the real story, I think, is that people are waking up to the fact of how tyrannical that spider system of energy dominance has been since the 1920s or even before.
I mean, you make very profound points there, for sure. I mean, they've obviously been keeping all of this a secret from us. They've literally told on themselves yesterday. And leading up to this, and with that press conference, I had the feeling that, why is this happening now? I think the question here, to your point, is not necessarily, are there extraterrestrials? That's what they're focusing on. And they seem to be having a narrative of fear, right? We need protection against these extraterrestrials. I think, for me personally, why are they doing this right now? Why did this started with Rubio, right? Marco Rubio, this started during the lockdowns, during quarantine, and they changed the name of UFO to UAP, unidentified aerial phenomenon. Like, why, what, during COVID and quarantine, why would this out of nowhere be a thing? So you're out of nowhere, you're going to change the freaking acronym and even the term to UAP from UFO. You're going to announce these videos of these jets, release it, and announce this whole committee to officially, on record, do the recon, right? So I'm thinking, this is really strange. Nothing's going to come of this. It never does. We still don't even know. Well, they haven't admitted to who's behind JFK even. You know what I mean? So here we are talking about aliens. And so yesterday, we have this huge committee hearing. And it was about 2 hours long, and it was absolutely amazing. They had the 3 witnesses. They had speaking on behalf of their experiences. Not everything was redacted. Not everything was confidential. Not everything was, I cannot confirm nor deny. Not everything was I'll have to get back to you on that. It was actually, there was some meat involved. And before we get into the summary of it, I wanted to also open it up to just get first thoughts from people and how you're feeling in general about the whole thing and leading up to this. Have you all seen it? Has there been anyone who hasn't seen it, the congressional hearing, or heard about it?
I heard about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is there
Well,
anyone
I've
here
seen
that?
it, of
about it,
course.
but I
We
haven't
watched. We
watched
had
it
a,
yet.
yeah, we
Go
had a
ahead.
screening of it earlier when it was live. We watched it live. For
Yeah.
most of it. Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't here for that.
I mean, you
Well,
did mention like I can neither confirm nor deny. I'll have to get back to you upon that because a lot of it was that. That is
Yeah.
one thing that a lot of people are going to be left titillated with no satisfaction about the fact that he's teasing all these things that he can tell you in private, but he's not going to say in the congressional
Well,
hearing. It's like what's been revealed is only the tip of the iceberg, to use the old phrase. I think there's a lot more that's going on. Of course, when you were talking about like why now, put my tinfoil hat theory on is that it could be part of this program of psychological control that they put on the general population, where first it was COVID, then it was Ukraine
during COVID,
and now it's UFOs. I mean, like
and global warming. Yep.
Yeah, so it's like
I agree with that theory a lot, because if you think about it this way, is one way to be able to get loyalty of your citizens when you want to be able to create a great shift is to have a perceived external danger that you need to protect them from. And now we have the external danger, which is other species of life forms, at a time where the world has now finally gone underneath a universal lockdown procedure. So now there is a unified way of governing us and a unified external threat from us or for us or whatever have you.
Yeah, absolutely. So it could be to usher in this global control system that they've been salivating over for decades or centuries, even,
and trying to get right.
I don't know if they'll win. I think they underestimate us. That's what I think.
100%. And we underestimate each other. We underestimate ourselves. We're, look, I personally, I strongly have faith in humanity. In fact, I was excited about this years and years and years ago in saying things like, what's going to really unite us? Because we're so divided, not just nationally, but, in our respective localities and also on an international scale. And it's like, what can unite us from all this blame game, finger pointing, whose fault is it, narrative driven way of being and interacting with each other. And it would be disclosure. And I've really celebrated that in my heart from a spiritual perspective, in how that could unite us in awe of the wonders beyond. And it's interesting to see the juxtaposition of that in being utilized as a fear-driven control mechanism to choke you when you're already gasping for breath, obviously, emotionally, and in our day-to-days, in the pressures of all things, economically and so on and so forth.
For sure, people are struggling very much. I was just thinking, this concept of global unification, it can be a two-edged sword, because on the one hand, they're trying to set up this control grid where they can psychologically dominate and enslave everybody. But global unification also brings with it people across cultures, across traditional boundaries, are connecting with one another and networking in a way that never happened before the internet, for example.
Exactly.
I mean, we're here, all different countries in the world, all many different perspectives, and we're uniting together in a this global unification is happening in another way, which is a positive way. There's a positive side to it and a negative side to it, and they want to impose a kind of centralized top-down control. But the decentralized, union of peers that we are meeting together as free agents, as it were, not trying to control each other, but to negotiate a peaceful, prosperous future, I think can be a positive thing if we're all united in a global consciousness that is more enlightened. Well, who could object to such a thing, really? One that respects our individual differences rather than trying to homogenize us into a mass of slaves, because that's what it seems to be about lately, is that they're trying to get everyone to be these global citizens, which means what? It means you don't have your own identity of your own individual situation and position in the world. You just have to be one of these global people. We should resist that, and we should celebrate the genuine legacy and heritage that we've all it's our birthright. Everybody has their own unique position that should be respected and honored.
Yeah, but those who are in power, who are scared of losing power, will gaslight others around them in order to be able to keep the safety of that power secure. And so that's what a move like this, what would be behind it. And there's a big percentage of the population now who was waking up to the whole thing. And as you know, the witch hunt that went on during COVID, for those who separated out and said, I'd like to think for myself instead of my government, decide what's right for my mind, body, family situation, all of that kind of stuff, who stepped out of your limits, resulted in jail style control in Australia, for example. Something we never thought we would witness out of our police. And so, look, I mean, the whole aspect of this externalized threat I find really, really interesting, because when you've got a percentage of society that's starting to wake up and realize something's not right here, then you need to nip that in the bud before it spreads like wildfire. And so having this kind of external explanation, this isn't our fault, that's their fault, it's probably the aliens doing this to us, all of a sudden turns them into the white knight heroes. So it's a really, really good way to contain a mass psychological manipulation, because you have a scapegoat and you can direct the energy towards that scapegoat. And this scapegoat is just so gargantuan and so unfathomable and so popular to conjecture, because it seems so plausible that it should exist, that while everybody's tying themselves in knots trying to bend their mind around that reality, there can be a lot happening in the background. So, yeah.
Agreed.
Absolutely. As you were
Is there
talking there, I
any?
was thinking about
Please
the.
continue.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, it's just I mean, to bring it back to the UAP, in quotes, disclosure. I think there's been a lot of momentum there's been a lot of people pushing to try and bring this issue up for a long time. But I think the timing of it and the way in which it's being done in this sort of piecemeal, scratching the surface fashion, it's as if they know that the revelation is coming, so they're kind of getting out in front of it and trying to control the narrative and do damage control or something. That was my thought a little bit.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Like, how is it coming though? Why is this being squeezed right now? This has been going on for, I mean, we know about Area 51, which actually they call 51, by the way. That's the way it's referred to in the circles that of the people, of the ones that know. This is not anything new. So why now? Why 2023 in July?
Well, I mean, yeah, it's like not to make light of the Australian tyranny, because that's coming forever. But they want that for the whole world, where if you do any wrong thing, you're going to get smashed down like 1984 George Orwell style. But it's well, why now? I think it's because they're, the brakes are off. I mean, they started hitting a couple of years ago when they started, removing your bank account if you decided to protest and these kind of things they're doing. They really just hit the accelerator on tyranny, and this seems to be potentially a method to ramp up the tyranny very dramatically if they can convince enough people that there's some sort of UFO alien threat, and that that demands that they need to develop these technologies and institute various policies or whatever to catch whatever. I don't know. It's been going on for a long time, the agenda to control people.
Yes, and to shut us out of things.
Sorry,
no, please. I was just adding. I was saying, and to shut us out from things. There's black ops, there's black books, there's things off record, for sure, which is like that in every country, in any force of government. Everyone's on a need to know basis. However, the intricacies and the degree of black operations that happen in America are by far, at least what we even have any inclination regarding, is beyond even you can't even fathom. Like, it's so off the books that even the highest ranking CIA, like, you would think that, they don't even have, everybody's on such a need to know basis that they've even fallen off the radar, so to speak. Like, they're operating on their own thing, budgetarily and operationally,
And
and
you got to
that's
think when
scary.
it is, because you got to think when it's as secret as that, as secretive, the abuses of power that can be done, behind closed doors without any kind of oversight or scrutiny
Oh
are
yeah.
just horrendous. Like, if you don't know if you guys have heard some of the testimonies of various whistleblowers that have been coming out recently in the last couple of weeks. There was one lady, she was an old lady now, but she talked about getting dragged into one of these black programs. She'd been a radar operator, I think, during the Cold War or something.
Ooh.
And she and her radar operator crew had been requested to try and track something which they couldn't track properly. It was one of these man-made UFOs. So they were testing its radar stealth capabilities. But after she was dragged into that program, she got dragged into more and more and more, and the abuse that she recounted that she suffered at the hands of these secret programs, because of course there's no oversight, there's no scrutiny of any of these people's behavior, so they can get away with the most barbaric and inhumane treatment, not only of any hapless member of the public who would happen to get a glimpse of something they shouldn't, but even the people who were involved in the programs themselves, because of the compartmentalization. Like, she was a military radar operator or something, support logistics army person. She gets dragged into this and gets abused and traumatized, and her whole life is ruined by it. And this seems to be the prevailing story, is that it's not only that it's secret, it's that it's secret evil, and that it has to be secret, because if it was public, people would be so outraged that they would put a stop to it.
Yeah, but that's a really good way to generate fear, isn't it? Because at the end of the day, that once again goes to that whole, don't worry, we'll protect you, you can't handle the truth. And so if you take a look at the setup of this, I think that that's, to me, the most significant part. Your excitement yesterday, Sheba, is very echoed by mine, in a way. We've waited our whole life for something like this to happen.
Yes. Yes.
And here it is.
Yep.
Yeah. And so, the little scientists in us are just, clicking our heels because we can't believe that we're not in Kansas anymore. But the reality is that if you think about the implications of this from an organizational perspective, you've got an entire world that now has just been informed that the government is missing, that they have had experiences, contact, accounts, and reliable witnesses of unidentified flying, I don't know what they're calling it, UAP now, break it down for me, whatever name that they've had to rebrand this with in order to be able to get more safety from the public. Because if you say flying aliens, then everyone's going to start burning shit down because I think it's all over. And so how that this has rolled out is suspicious as hell, because there's been no structure surrounding it. It's just like, oh, by the way, no need to watch the football on Friday night. We've got a press conference to let you know about this shit that we found. Like, it's not. We need to prepare the entire globe for this, because this information is going to rot the very foundations of everything we know. It's kind of like, this is on Channel 10, and then, by the way, Channel 9 is hosting your favorite TV show.
Well, yeah, it's because the media is controlled. This is part of the revelation, is that these people have so much wealth of resources that they can, not only, one of the main ways they control people seemingly is by buying them out. And if buying them out doesn't work, they got too much of a conscience or something, they'll do something darker. But
please them.
Yeah, one thing we heard from Stephen Greer is that he was offered, however many millions of dollars, and he turned it down. And the guy who offered him the millions of dollars to stop doing his disclosure work said that they've paid like 10,000 people these millions of dollars.
Yep, Dr. Greer's been on the forefront of this for quite some time. Yep.
Yeah, that they like 10,000. Like, you can buy off 10. They have the resources to buy off 10,000 people with millions of dollars.
Oh, for sure. Oh my God, they have like a bottomless budget. The black budget just seems to be funneling money from so many different. It is, and here we are struggling as citizens.
We can barely eat, barely survive. People are struggling so hard.
We all know as a baseline, okay? I think that I can say this statement just out there and say we all know as a baseline that they have the financial means, the organizational structure and potential agenda to do this and pull this off. Okay, that's like a baseline. Everybody will say, okay, this goes far deeper than we realize, all the funding is there, all of that kind of stuff. And your question before, Sheba, about why do you think that this is happening, I think is the most crucial one.
Now.
Because it's in that, why and why now? Yeah, thanks for reiterating that, because now is pretty significant. Of course it is. Yeah, I have my theories on why now, and I think it's got a lot to do with the awakening process. I think that they understand. I mean, I'm going to make some just personally interpretive statements. I have no foundation for them, but it's an open share. But everywhere I go in my life since the past layer of this awakening process, it's almost like that there is this interesting situation of an energetic memo has gone out. It reminds me of when I was in corporate business, and then head office sends out a memo to everybody, and then all of a sudden, bang, everybody knows this collective information suddenly, and it's only the people who are relevant, and you talk about it freely because you know who knows and who doesn't, just easily like this. Now that's relevance when it comes to a corporate structure, but when it comes to this, this is stuff that's happening subconsciously. It's happening energetically. People are just spontaneously becoming aware of information and being able to discuss it deeply and freely between themselves with no observable way of how that information has rolled out. Now, these people and the infrastructure that gives them power also means that they have access to this collective information as well in some way, shape or form. How they're interpreting it and how they're experiencing it, I think, is being heavily reflected in their behaviours, which is they're seeing it as a loss of power and needing to be able to put some kind of action in place to try and regain that power before it slips away. So
and
if they're
reclaim the
going to that
narrative.
length to do it,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yep.
And so if they're going to this extent to do it, it shows two things to me, which is number one, how grossly that they have misinterpreted it, which means that they're not as powerful as they think. And number two, how big a threat they see it as.
Yeah. Well, we are the threat too. Like we
Pretty
volunteer our power by our attention and our what comes out of our purses and our pockets. We empower this machine. We are the ones that aren't wielding our power. And I'm not saying burn it all down by any means. It's being more conscious and aware of the role you play in the big scheme of it all. And it doesn't mean to be anti-government or anything like it. It's to be well informed. It's to be engaged and being present and how you spend your money. And, don't get caught up in the pointing of the fingers of across the aisle, so to speak, right? It's more about community and your family and each other on, individually, collectively. And I fully agree with what you're saying, and would even provide that I do think that there is structure to this. I think that what they're doing is a rollout, and we're going to get into the recap momentarily here. But from my understanding of this, they're really sneakily slipping things out on record. And this is on record, mind you. This is not a hearsay History Channel UFO Encounter special, part 1, 2, and 3. You know what I mean? This is not even a Dr. Greer fabulous production that he does with his CE5 program, which I think is going to really pick up a lot of traction because of this. I think a lot of people are going to be downloading. I think people's consciousness has been cracked from yesterday's political spectacle, if you will, on record. This is on record, folks. This is not something that's just being spoken about from a politician to gain eyeballs and dollars. This is on record in the most formal governmental way, and it's ongoing. And before I get into the summary, I want to really just inquire, and please don't be scared. We encourage everyone to speak their opinion here. We are all leaders here, right? Your voice matters. Is there anyone here that does not believe in extraterrestrials or life from other planets? Please speak up. There's no right or wrong here. It's an understanding opportunity.
In what context?
In what context? Great question. I would say non-human being from other planets.
But I mean, does it mean visiting Earth, or that they the possibility of them,
that they
them
exist,
existing?
Period. Yes.
That they exist. Yeah, probably.
Yeah, I agree. I'm just curious if there's anyone, because I've met throughout my life countless so many people that do not, and they shoot it down and they say it's foo-foo or whatever, and they say that's just, that there's no premise. We are Earth. We are the beings. We're not animals. There's this superiority ideology that I think is programmed in us from a young age through our educational systems. In science, we should be asking, this should be something that we talk about. I went to school in America and I also went to school abroad. And I'll tell you what, my schooling abroad re-tickled a lot of things that I wasn't even allowed to talk about here. And I brought up things like spontaneous combustion, and I had my desk put outside the classroom. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is ridiculous. And when I was overseas going to school, private school, we actually talked about it and read material about it and tried to, deconstruct what that looked like from a scientific periodic table substance perspective, like the actual, like how this could happen, and this, we went into see the reactions of sulfur and things like that. Not to digress, but is there anyone that would like to speak up on that? Like, they don't feel as though that it's
Yeah, I would.
practical, that there's no life on other planets, like we are the only life. We are maybe somewhat of a strong religious faith of Christianity, maybe that doesn't, that it might not be the best, way of a Christian to believe in aliens. There's no right or wrong here. Please don't feel like you're silenced here.
I think
I would love to hear.
there's life out there.
Okay.
Speaking just from a purely statistical standpoint, if it's if you believe that the universe is infinite, then just statistically there has to be life that could have formed on another planet if it is infinite, right? Even if it's a 0.0000001% chance of life forming on a planet, it has to repeat, right?
Yeah.
Maybe not in the same way.
Look, I feel that
I
on
have a
so many
different
levels.
perspective.
Go for it.
I agree. I agree with what you're saying, but I also have a bit of a different perspective. And something I just wanted to bookmark is when you said before about, because you've watched the whole shebang roll out on that conference. And so I wanted your take on something you said, but I'll just bookmark it. And then I also wanted to share something based on something you said before as well, an analogy. So the bookmark just quickly is in reference to you saying that the conference cracked open people's consciousness, and I'll leave that there. And so in regards to, is there extraterrestrial life form or some life form outside of our perception of existence, external from us? Well, the whole process of spiritual awakening, the inner work, shadow work, from whatever angle you tackle it, it's always about being able to shell back your resistance to see reality for what it is and not for what you were seeing it in a deluded state to be. And so if you apply that to the greater picture and to this relevant topic, then you're in a situation where we're looking at things from the lenses of what we have now. But as we all go through this process, then things become clearer and we see things differently. And so this idea of these external life forms outside of our planet, realm of existence, dimension, whatever, they could exist or not exist, but we're still looking at it through a undeveloped faculty, and so we can only apply the concepts that we have at this stage to what we're observing with this phenomenon. So it doesn't leave the wild card that we haven't got the full picture yet, so we haven't got the full information yet, so we don't realize completely what we are seeing.
Yeah. 100%. And the information we do have, it's compromised outside of our own intuitive ability, right? And personal experience, and even those things can be, well, at least personal experience can be compromised because, as Dr. Greer points out in a lot of his material, there are staged abductions and staged encounters that are allegedly coerced by institutions of government to dismay and go ahead.
No, well, I mean, don't you find it interesting how, I mean, this is an incredibly, I mean, if we go with the narrative, this is an incredibly advanced civilization, right? And they have an agenda with us. So if they've got an agenda with us and they're trying to do it covertly, anytime that you get observed is a mishap. I mean, that, to see it any other way, probably defies logic. Why would they deliberately, rudimentarily just plop up and make mistakes like that? It doesn't make a lot of sense.
Well, it's
and
intentional
so
for sure. The real stuff, yeah. Or even the faux stuff is intentional. Yeah. Yep, go ahead.
Yeah. So I mean, it just it's, I don't know who's seen this movie, and it's, if you've seen this movie, you'll get what I'm talking about. You guys familiar with the movie Signs by M. Night Shyamalan?
Yes.
All right. So you remember how it gets to,
with,
and then it gets to the point where Yeah, but I mean, they land here, they do these, advanced crop circles and all this kind of stuff. And then it all comes down to them hiding in the cupboard while they're trying to scratch underneath the
Quaid.
door because they can't break into a door to get the person out. And you just look at this and you go, all right, this makes for a fun story, but it's ridiculous. Like, it's no way that they could land here, do these incredible things, but they can't open the door to get to you. Like, it's just, what? No, of course it's
That's
ridiculous.
not the objective. It's not to get to us. It's I'm not going to speculate, but my hypothesis here would be it's a
this
message.
is the movie. But this is the
Yes,
movie
Hollywood,
that, I
for
mean,
sure.
I'm just
Yeah.
sticking with the movie
Got it. Storyline.
story.
Yes.
Yeah, but it's just stupid. It's just, you watch it, and if you don't laugh at a certain point, then you've really bought into it too far, right? And I'm sure he was having a good chuckle when he did those scenes. He's a
Dennis
super
Quaid.
smart man. Yeah, not to. And so when I look at this, I think to myself, I'm not saying I don't believe the people that are having these experiences. In fact, I greatly believe them, just like I believe all of the metaphysical perspectives and experiences that I come in contact with. But I think we're still interpreting from an undeveloped lens of this part of our evolutionary process that is being sharpened and fine-tuned. It's like an eye test, like we're just kind of twizzling this around. And this might be a good segue into that bookmark that I made. So the analogy I was going to bring up before I did about something you said, which is I think it's part of that undeveloped responses and reactivity that we're still stuck in as a collective. Because if you think about this analogy of you're in a supermarket with a child and the child starts chucking a tantrum, you get to see two different types of parenting roll out. You'll see one parenting where the parent gets emotionally flustered by this situation. So they basically take that emotional feedback from the child and they react. And so the child starts having a tantrum. And in a way, the parent almost starts having a tantrum as a way to try and calm the child down. Shut up, you'll be in trouble when we get home, all of this kind of stuff. Versus when you see a child chucking a tantrum and the parent is just sitting there observing until the child runs out of steam and then says, okay, cool, do we want to fix this? Because that's an undeveloped brain. Yeah. And so I think this is very strategic behavior in order to be able to get those. I mean, think about the partialized percentage of society who have been raising the flag like Chicken Little for years to say there's aliens, they're landing, they're abducting us, this is real, pay attention to us, Area 51, there's Roswell. This has been a long time coming for them. You think you're rejoicing. Can you imagine the people who are completely
Of course.
obsessed with this? Yeah,
I can't stop thinking about them. All of them.
yeah.
Honestly,
So there's been, nothing short of a witch hunt on these people, in a way, for many, many years to call them crazy, psychotic, delusional people, right? And now, all of a sudden, they have got the backing of one of the most powerful governments in the world saying, you were never crazy, this is real.
Vindication by the same power that silenced you, or at least gave the impression of making you out to be a nutso. Now being vindicated by the same institution. Yes.
We have viewed for many, I mean, always actually in human history, we have observed people who are described to be suffering mental psychosis as people who are dysfunctional, broken things that need to be contained in order for the safety of our full society so that doesn't spread and damage our progress. Yeah. And so then once again, you apply it to that catchment of people who have been kind of labeled and lumped into that group up until yesterday, pretty much. And so these are also people who, I mean, we all have lots of discussions about this kind of stuff in a group like Crown. It's a part of a toolkit of different approaches of how we all explored the concept of consciousness and the awakening process. And so now suddenly this particular catchment, and they are the most practical catchment, because I don't know how you're going to go after the religious ones. It's going to be a lot harder to lob a wing off of an angel and have it fall into a football field for you. So you can say, oh, look, we found one, than an alien spacecraft. Yeah, that's more viable. But now you've got a big percentage of the population where you can basically leverage that particular narrative of what is the solution to what's happening to us, and control their story about it. So they go from a big free-thinking, awakening population that's trying to discover this from themselves to buying straight into an indoctrination that is being controlled now by the government.
And there you go. I mean, that's very interesting. You make some very valid key points there. Let's get into the facts of it, at least what has been presented to us. So the U.S. Congress, right? Let's recap. Has held a public hearing on claims the government was concealing a long-standing program that retrieves and reverse engineers unidentified flying objects. 3 retired military veterans testified on Wednesday, which was yesterday, before a House Oversight Committee that was the Congress's latest foray into the world of UAPs, which are unidentified aerial phenomenon. This is the term, as we spoke about earlier, that the government uses instead of UFOs effective during quarantine. For whatever reason, they just decided to change that when those videos were released from those fighter jets. The U.S. government has begun taking the issue of UAPs more seriously in recent years, pushing for more research as the sightings observed could be a national security matter. The central worry was that the sightings potentially are unknown aerial surveillance technology used by China to collect intelligence on U.S. defenses. So let's go through some of the takeaways. So there's an alleged cover-up. So retired Major David Grush, I think is how you pronounce it. He's one of the veterans who testified on Wednesday, and he said he was asked in 2019, by the head of a government task force on UAPs to identify all highly classified programs relating to the task force's mission. At the time, Grosh was detailed to the National Reconnaissance Office, the agency that operates U.S. spy satellites. Quote, I was informed in the course of my official duties of a multi-decade UAP crash retrieval and reverse engineering program to which I was denied access, unquote. When asked whether the U.S. government had information about extraterrestrial life, Grush said the U.S. likely has been aware of, quote, non-human, quote, activity since, get this, 1930s. The U.S. Representative Tim Burchett supported the idea that the government was concealing information, saying at the opening of the hearing, which also featured testimony from 2 former Navy officers who said they witnessed UAPs, that, quote, we're going to uncover the cover-up. So pay attention to this verbiage, folks. This is heavy stuff. This is not Alex Jones. This is a freaking hearing of the United States. You know what I'm saying? This is a congressional hearing, okay?
Which one for Alex Jones just roll out in like 2 seconds in my head, and I thought,
and I'm not,
poor guy. He's sitting there
I'm not
upset
slighting
and
him,
happy
by the way.
right now.
Yeah,
No,
he's made out to be a
yeah,
fool.
sorry.
I'm not saying I think he's a fool. Is he over the top?
Yeah.
Like, heck yeah. Does he say some crazy stuff? Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not fingering him as a fraud, though. You know what I'm saying? I'm using him as his excessive presence and positioning. So let's get into the Pentagon denials. The Pentagon has denied Grush's claims of a cover-up. In a statement, U.S. Department of Defense spokesperson Sue Gao said investigators have not discovered, quote, any verifiable information to substantiate claims that any programs regarding the possession or reverse engineering of extraterrestrial materials have existed in the past or exist currently, unquote. The statement did not address UFOs that are not suspected of being extraterrestrial objects. So here are the violent tactics. Grush said that he became a government whistleblower after his discovery and has faced retaliation for coming forward. It, quote, it was very brutal and very unfortunate. Some of the tactics they used to hurt me, both professionally and personally, unquote. He said, Grush declined to be more specific about the relatory tactics, citing a continuing investigation. During the hearing, Congressman Tim Burchett asked the former whistleblower if he possessed any knowledge of people who have potentially been harmed in efforts to conceal extraterrestrial technology, to which he replied, yes. I will add to this, by the way, this is not part of this recap, but they further inquired the guy and said, has anybody been harmed in even reversing the technology hands-on? And he said yes to that as well, which I thought was interesting because that's, the materials that you're handling. Doubts. Pressed for details. In the course of the hearing, Grush seemed hesitant to answer even under oath, repeatedly saying he could not commit in a public hearing because the information is classified. He said the U.S. government is hiding information on UAPs, not only from the public, but also from Congress. They went on to say so many things. Like, what jumped out the most, and we don't have to go any further than this, is that, and this is what really let the cat out of the bag. When asked if UAPs have ever crashed and have been recovered, as we discussed like 5 minutes ago, yes, he confirmed they had. Then they asked, were the pilots aboard human? And he said, no, they were non-human, biologic, I think, of biologic origin. That right there, folks, is the humdinger. Let's reiterate that, okay? When asked about the crashed craft, the UAPs, right? We're not even talking about the videos yet, okay? We're talking about this testimony in a congressional hearing that's going on record. If the crashed UAPs, these UFOs, right? These crafts were piloted. Yes, they were piloted. Okay. Were they piloted by humans? No. They were non-human beings. They were biologics. They even said like that. My brain is still vibrating from this because.
But this is just interesting, isn't it? Because, you watched yesterday something that is pretty much the biggest news in human history.
Well, for me, but my opinion, yes, this is the biggest thing we've ever heard about.
For you is applied to your reaction to it, but that's because we care about this stuff heavily. But if you think about it, for the implications of it,
oh my God,
it's the biggest thing that happened in human history to all of us,
sure.
Whether you are aware of it or not.
Yep.
And so the most interesting part, if you think about not only how gargantuan this is, but the implications of what it means for us as a species. And I don't know about you guys, but I've woken up on a normal day in Australia and everybody's just gone to work.
Yes.
And going about their day.
Yes.
And there's no alerts on my phone. And my YouTube isn't completely covered in this. And I haven't received texts from friends all over the place to say, oh my God, they found the aliens, shit's going down.
The media is, yes.
And
Go ahead.
if you think about the human creative hive mind that creates art and music and cinematography, we're not telling an infinite amount of stories here. Even the stories that we do tell, they all boil down to some fundamental stories that we just keep telling over and over and over in different ways. Yeah. So the hang on, I lost energy of what I was saying, and I really want to stay on that train. Just give me a sec to bring it back.
Take a moment. So I'm going to go ahead and jump in here.
That's it. Sorry, I got it. No, I got it. I'm so sorry. I'll tail off. I'll be 2 seconds. So if you think about every single alien movie that was ever written, our creative brain and how we operate with it is really systemic of how we think and experience life. Yeah, we're telling the story about it to each other to make sense of it. And so every alien movie that was ever made, pretty much most of them results in some kind of apocalyptic experience. Yeah, we look at this as these kind of monsters that have complete control over our sovereignty, and we have to fight back for our own planet, kind of thing. Occasionally it's collaborative and really cool, yeah, but it's one extreme or the other. Yeah. This isn't fitting in either category at all. It's not fitting. I feel like someone's just read the soccer news, which team won the soccer champion, whatever is World Cup. Sorry, I should know more about that. So yeah, it doesn't fit into either of the narratives that has been told about by the collective consciousness for how many years that we've been able to, really display it to each other about how this story goes, which is one way or the other. It's gone neither way, so That's not our collective reaction is not incorporated in this story. It's completely, as you said before, Hermitage, if he's still here, it's completely contained by the media. They're containing the fallout on it.
Well, they're controlling all of it. They're controlling this. This is where I think the infrastructure is in place, because they are slow bleeding the campaign of disclosure. It started with Marco Rubio talking about they're launching this whole congressional hearing, this whole little investigation, everything. I didn't anticipate any meat to come to the surface. For them to say even that there was non-human beings in the thing, that is like thunderous. That has never before been on record. And that right there, folks, is the first step. What I believe, in my humble opinion, remember, who am I? I'm nobody. I know nothing. I can only share with you my experience and perspective. And you decide for yourself. Obviously, we all do. And the fact that they said that one thing, it's such an iron, like, stake in the ground in terms of disclosure. It's huge. And from there, after this committee, there's 5 days for all the Senates. Everybody can submit, all the congressmen can submit questions for up to 5 days. They went, I forget what they talked about, at the skid or whatever. They had the private meeting that lasted for hours after this hearing that lasted hours. These, witnesses went and had behind closed doors even more hours and hours of interviews that were for all the things that they said are classified, and we'd have to discuss in a private setting. So this is not it, folks. The fact that they allowed on record and to the public facing that there are non-human biologics, non-human beings piloting that craft, that were part of the crash, that were physically there, is insane. And there's more to come. I'm so excited about this. I'd like to also recap before we open it up to the floor. They talked about some of the craft that they saw. Most of you probably know this who keep track of what's been going on. One of them is something called a Tic Tac, which is like the little yum yum candies that are little dinkies. They come in orange, was my favorite, and they have the mint. They have the dark green. They have all these different things. Comes in a little shaky thing that makes great music. When you shake it, it's called Tic Tacs. It's a candy. So they called the vessel that, or this craft that, because it looked like a giant Tic Tac. When I say giant, what is the scope and scale of that? Glad you asked. Let me tell you. The size of an American football field, folks. The size of an American football field. This pilot saw a craft the size of an American football field in the sky, shaped like a freaking Tic Tac, that just blasted off like there's no way in the world. They went on to testify that they did not feel that they had the artillery or any type, that America even had the technology that could ever defend against something like that, which I think is very, concerning that they even asked that question. You know what I mean? Because I think it's definitely alludes to a narrative of fear, and would like to focus back on the facts. So they also said that there was a cube craft with a sphere inside of it that was unarmed, and they did not feel threatened. Like, this is insane. Like, what? To hear these things, it makes me so excited, because I don't know, growing up, I've always been aware of the beyond. And you want to define life on other planets, somebody's mic is popping. You want to define life on other planets, define life. Any organisms, of course there's organisms, there's liquid, there's all kinds of gases, there's all kinds of stuff on other planets. So the idea of there not being able to have a life on other planets is absolutely insane. And still, people to this day, I don't know after yesterday how they feel, but they have said that this is not possible and that this is a fairy tale. And remember our history, folks. We thought, and some still do, and I'm not saying that it's not, but I'm definitely not saying that it is. The Earth was flat. That the sun revolved around us. Like, we have this way of separating ourselves in this hierarchy, like in this hierarchy design, that we're better than everything and we're the only ones that matter. And so this is very exciting to me personally. I'm ready. I'm here for it. I slept a very different, pardon me, way last night. I feel less alone in my ideology and my faith of beyond, and I'd love to hear what all of you have to say. Let's get at it. What do you guys think?
I don't know if you're gonna love all of it.
Talk about it. What do you mean? Talk about it.
What's the thing
What do you
about the
mean?
bodies you're talking about?
I'll go ahead and let him go.
What's your question, ELX?
Well, you saying something about bodies or something? Or they found something piloting something? What I heard. What was that?
Dude, they confirmed that there have been crashed UFO, UAPs, whatever you want to refer to them as, that not only were piloted by life, they confirmed that that life was non-human beings of biologic matter. Like it's like, you know, they even said actually in another thing that there was this holographic technology of the pilots that were holographically there, you know, powering this craft while it was in the air. This is a separate thing, but I just wanted to add that as well. Like, this is some cray stuff, you guys. This is not X-Files. This is not on Netflix. This is happening in real time right now. Let's go. I'm here for it. Woo! Did I answer the question?
I love it. I love how you're making a party out of it when we know deep down there's
Yeah.
something really going on at the
Hey,
same time. Let's have fun with it, hey?
this is
But you know,
amazing.
this whole, I've got a comment, you know, I'll always have a lot of comments on this, so I'll try not to.
No, you go for it, and then Stone, because I know he's been waiting. Go ahead.
Sorry, Stone. Yeah, so yeah, I don't want to hog the mic. So yeah, look, I think it's really, really interesting that the only discussion that they're having is this must be aliens. What about the fact that there's a big percentage of the population who's tried psychedelics and have met machine elves? What about the overwhelming percentage of the population who are religious and believe that this would be angels or demons?
Exactly.
What about the percentage
all the
of
same.
the population who think that we're being controlled by reptilian overlords? You know, there's a lot of different explanations for this phenomenon, yeah, and they're only sticking to one narrative, and they're saying that it's a narrative that they can measure. But from what we've heard so far, I mean, we've gotten a really accurate description of a massive gargantuan Tic Tac spaceship, and I'm sure we'll get more descriptions and explanations of things that
and the variety.
we can't visualize and substantiate it for ourselves. And look, the American government is very much got a history of this. One key example that comes to mind for me is Saddam Hussein when he's found. Where's the body?
Weapons of
sorry, we had to chuck it to ocean. Yep. Sorry. Yeah, sorry we had to stick it into the ocean.
That's Osama bin Laden. Yes, that was Osama bin Laden.
Sorry.
Yes.
Damn Australians, they don't follow their American
No worries, no worries.
Yeah, but you know, this is a very key example of what happens when there's some kind of cover up. Oh, sorry, we've got your best interests at heart, but we did have to get rid of the evidence for your best interest. Sorry about it, and we stuck it up. You know.
Yeah. Where's Hitler's body? Where's JFK's brain? What's really going on here, folks? Not to say the H word. I'm just saying, like, our history is definitely sorted. And to your point, Sun Knight, I would even say, like, who's to say these beings aren't us, our evolved selves from a distant future dimensionally? And this is a time traveling thing. Like, this is so beyond. Look, they said things like physics as we know it. Things like this, the verbiage. I highly recommend all of you here today and anybody listening to this at any given time. I'm going to have the link to the congressional hearing in the body of the description. Just watch it. Take your 2 hours. It's a little slow on the uptake. Understand what's going on here and hear it for yourself. Don't listen to us. Don't take our word for it. Experience it for yourself in real time. This is historic, folks. This is huge. And it's going to affect our brains. It already is. It's going to affect our style, our fashion, our pulp culture. It's going to affect finances. It's going to affect products, trends. This is something that's being woven in. And I'm not saying forcefully. I'm saying, like, the fact that this is even being discussed, whether they're trying to have a controlled narrative or not, is going to open it up for attention. And so it's all going to come out, right? And, you know, I think they're slow bleeding this so people don't go jumping off cliffs and snorting half a gram lines or something, like, you know what I mean? Like, because it's like, you know what I mean? Because
I know.
You gotta
I think that would be part of the agenda.
Calibrate people. You gotta slowly calibrate people. It's like almost like when you take medication or you're weaning off something or you're working out. You don't go from 0 to 100. At least that's not the way to go. there are people of certain types of mind, especially psychological warfare wise, or even from an institution of control mechanism psychologically, that you can't just rip off the scab or rip off, the situation, the blinders. You're going to be blinded by the light. So what you do is a slow bleed. So we have this thing, it's slow. They drop the bomb about the biological non-human pilots, which to me is the creme de la creme of the whole damn thing.
Where was that dropped?
Yesterday.
Where?
In the freaking Congress. It was a United States congressional hearing where all of Congress was there. What?
Congress is full of shit. There's a lot. I'm looking some places that I look to, and I can't even find I can't find anything. So if it's real, I'm not. Yeah.
Well, it's definitely real. I wouldn't be having this effect if it wasn't real.
Well,
if you mean is it real from what they're saying? The point is, this is on record. UFOs has been something I've been interested in for as I can remember, the stars and everything, and nothing like this has ever been on formal record before, let alone televised and documented.
WMPs were on record, so people make shit up. Like,
true.
I don't believe it. I don't believe it's there. You know how advanced they'd have to be here, like
that's
and
ALX.
Until they do
I invite
something.
you to watch it and watch it with your children. It's important that you show them this. This is monumental.
If it's real, it's whatever. They're not, if it's real, they'll see it like tomorrow or the next day.
Look at the invite. There's a link to the direct Congressional, Senate, everything in the invite to this event, and watch it with your children, or watch it first if you want to.
I would obviously watch it first. But if it's real, they'll find out. What are they gonna do? If they find out in 2 weeks, they're not gonna lose the advantage of friendship with the aliens who haven't spoken to anyone. And I hope they don't.
What do you mean they haven't spoken to anyone?
Who the fuck? Who are they talking to?
Where have you been? Dude, people all the time talk about their freaking interactions with aliens. There have been sightings. There's been.
Aren't they dead?
They've been asking for car parts from the US government since the 1930s, apparently.
Multiple sightings.
South
America has been silenced. Governments have been silenced. Presidents have tried to expose it. There's a whole litany of freaking breadcrumbs.
Can you imagine
something you said? Sorry, Cyril. Look, something you said, and hey, by the way, long time. Something you said really stuck out to me, right? And it was in regards to them rolling this out in a controlled, slow fashion. And I completely agree with that. But what I think that they are rolling out in a slow, controlled fashion is not what they're fronting to the public, which I'm sure you suspect as well, clearly.
Yes. However, there's still morsels there for us to fly with. Yes, go ahead.
Oh, I mean, this is our job right now, is to start separating wheat from chaff. Things are starting to move and shake, and we knew it was coming, and we didn't know what it was going to look like. And this is what it looks like. So this is the next phase, and it's the next phase after COVID. And so if you think about the COVID situation, sorry, I've got trucks coming past where I'm staying, and they're so loud I'll hesitate. When you think about the COVID situation and this idea that they need to roll it out in a controlled fashion to prevent mass panic, no, they don't. Look what they did with COVID. They didn't roll that out in controlled fashion.
True.
When you think about the concept,
we could really get into the weeds on that. Wait, go ahead.
Yeah, we will, of course, and please poke holes all through it. I mean, how else do we learn from our perspective? But just the segue to that, they did not roll that out in controlled perspective, and there's no sense in turning around and saying that they couldn't because it surprised us, because we always knew that this was going to happen eventually. Okay, there's a 100-year rule to this that they knew quite well about. We've had 100 years to prepare for it. We've had the research to prepare for it. We've got the infrastructure to prepare for it. We've got the globalized thinking to prepare for it. We have shown that with capitalism and international relations and all of that kind of stuff. So it's nonsensical to turn around and say that we weren't at a level to be able to be prepared to handle a pandemic of that scale. Maybe not in the same way that if we had gone through it in this technology and had hindsight, sure, but not the dumpster fire that we experienced, for certain. Okay, and so they've had a really long time to prepare from this. They have disclosed this. If it's been going on, as far as their admission, since the 1930s, that's 100 years to fucking prepare for it. Close to, or 90 years, give or take a decade.
Which comes back to the question of why now.
Yeah, so they haven't prepared for this. in that sense, this is not being rolled out in some kind of control fashion to prevent mass panic from the Armageddon of the aliens coming to whatever. Yeah, this is a controlled way of being able to release this information in a docile fashion in order to be able to create and orchestrate a certain kind of reaction to fall in line with a particular agenda.
Yes.
I'm going to go all in and say that nothing's going to come from this, because if something comes from this, I'm so fucking stupid now in the grand scheme that I don't matter for fuck all.
Oh my goodness.
Well, I get to call ego on that, or does someone else want to?
It's so hard to get
to call ego on that.
Come here. They're coming here for a reason, not to hide for 100.
They're here.
I doubt it. I highly fucking doubt it.
What if the plot twist is we are the aliens?
How'd they get caught?
That's what
fine. That's fine. Anywhere we go, we're the aliens, right? You're the only aliens not at home.
Well, I'm a fem alien. Okay, sorry. Stone, where you at? I thought you had something to say.
They're talking about. They're as ridiculous as saying, okay, here we've got a laboratory of people doing testing on mice. And then they go, I mean, just imagine a really big cage of mice, really big enough people to get in. I don't know, pick bigger animals, chimpanzees in a big nature reserve where they're doing testing on them because they want to be nice about it because the public is aware. Okay, so you have the laboratory assistants, they're going in, they're doing stuff and experimenting on the chimpanzees, and they leave, and then now and again occasionally they just accidentally lock one of those guys in there or forget their lab coat in there, and stuff like this. I mean, obviously not. Obviously not. This is a highly controlled experiment in experimental environment, and we're just stupid rudimentary humans. And we're not going to accidentally lock one of our lab assistants in the cage, or, someone trips up and breaks their glasses and we're like, oops, shit, we can't go help him. We don't know how to fix glasses. Yeah, that doesn't make any sense. And so you've got this entire alien civilization where one of their dudes just breaks down here or has a car accident here in planet Earth. And they just go, oh, well, dude, we can't help him. Just leave him in there. Obviously not. Doesn't make any sense, to be quite honest. It's just so... It just doesn't make any sense. Sorry. It's so
Hello,
the
everybody.
signs all over again. Oh, hi. Sorry. I just think it all defies logic. When you think about it from a really logical perspective, it's actually quite ridiculous. And I'm not saying that these reports or experiences aren't true either. I just think that we're looking at it from a limited lens.
You gonna chime in?
Sorry, I'm just joining, so I'm trying to
Hi,
get a
Mikey.
grasp of what everybody's
Oh,
opinion is on this subject.
What's your opinion? We're just talking about what happened yesterday. Do you have any questions? Just to refresh the room, there was a huge bombshell yesterday. A United States formal congressional hearing on UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomena, right? And the statement here is accusing the government of not only being aware of these things, but having a program in place to not only control and keep the secret, but also to research it and to reverse engineer the technology as a result. So that was the specificity from yesterday's thing, and some of the highlights they did say. My thing personally that I think was the thing that blew it all off the freaking chain there, the radar, was the fact that they said not only has this craft crashed, and a whistleblower, quote unquote, said that not only is he aware of craft that has crashed, but also the pilots within that crash of biologic matter were non-human. Okay? Now.
Wait, so it's just one whistleblower we're talking about?
No, there are three specifically in this instance. However, there's been a litany of people and situations in the past that never saw such formality on record until yesterday. And this is why my heart is racing right now. And I'm so excited because they can't go backwards from this. I feel it even myself, in someone who's, embraces the beyond and is aware of beyond. It's cracking even my consciousness. You know what I'm saying? Because the magnitude of it all, the implication of it all, the how it's already affecting and changing our future and our relationship with each other. what were you
That
going to say,
cracking
Stone?
of consciousness that you
Yeah, but
mentioned.
I want to let Stone have
Sorry.
a second here because I don't want him to forget what he was going to say. Mr. Stone, I'm
Hello.
dying to hear what you have to say. Yes.
I have too many thoughts. I've been trying to keep track. I honestly should have brought a piece of paper. I'm also going to admit I'm in a bit more of like a grumpy mood today, but so I don't want to be short. No, I should get a piece of paper and take notes down though. There's a lot of points here that I want to bring forth. I think that like everybody that's had something to say is in some way, shape, or form adding substance to the dissertation dissemination we're doing. I do highly recommend, if you haven't seen the footage, that you should watch it, like, or at least the last 45 minutes of it. If you watch the last 20, 45 minutes of it, you can get a lot of it. But
How
it's
do you sum it
fantastic.
up? What do you think
I
it
mean, so I'm using a lot of citation. The thing is, like, I watched the press hearing a month ago, so I was already prepared for this because this has been in the works for like 4 or 5 months. It's just now people are finally starting to want to talk about it.
But the aliens have not spoken, have they? Does anyone claim they've spoken in any language or communicated at all, and they were alive? Yeah. The biological pilots, that's what they say.
Well,
can you
in this
imagine me
particular
going to another
hearing,
planet and not talking?
I know, right?
Never. If we're aliens somewhere else, I'm gonna fuck. Sorry.
But the point of this Congress hearing, and Light's making it clear too, and everyone's making a good point on making sure that focus is being kindled, and that's the fact that despite all things, we need not be ignorant. We need to yield to the institution's rhetoric and understand they are trying to develop and repair the rhetoric and the vernacular internally, as well as how to present it publicly through the government. They've already admitted that the Vatican and other internal governments and systems and black box operations have existed. So we're just going to go ahead and put like a prerequisite addendum down, which is like the conversation won't move forward without the first cornerstones of yes, period. Aliens, yes. We aren't capable of understanding. Yes. Once we get that out of the way, we can understand what they're trying to talk about. And what they're trying to talk about, and you can kind of see it, is you have many layers of government, and it's like 1 in 5 of them have access to another sector of government, and then 1 in 5 of those government sectors have access to a reliable procedure or rhetoric. And then you get into like global systems, because the main issue right now that we're actually facing in America is the government isn't sure how to appropriately address the people in terms of Russian interference or government interference from other states. Because the issue is, if yes, 100% there are cracks, we're not sure how to go about telling the public or even other government systems what to do. We're still working on it, and we're working with the Vatican. Now the issue is, if that's true, if it's approved, and let's pretend, like here, a car just drove past me. Let's just pretend I'm Russian. I don't want to be political, but we're just going to use it because it's the American Cold War checker piece that we have right now. So I could just say I'm bad guy, but who cares? I'm bad guy, okay? I'm bad guy, and a spaceship crashed in my backyard. Now I have it, and now I'm going to reverse engineer it, and now I'm going to take that, and I'm going to terrorize. The issue is, if that's the case, does the government continue to lie to the people, or does the government need to work on achieving more truth? We do not have enough foundation to come to the people and say, oh, because we can't, like, this is where it gets really political. You don't want to go tell your people, oh, hey, the bad guy has tech that's too complicated for us to understand. You also don't want to go tell your people, that thing you saw was not aliens, it was a bad guy. And you also aren't sure if you should maybe just go ahead and go, well, why don't we just tell them it was aliens? But then we'd be technically working with the bad guys. Do you see what I mean? Because you're using them as a pawn to manipulate your people. And that's a big issue. And the actual, like, what we're watching has nothing to do with us. You guys, no offense, but like half the people in here didn't even watch it. We don't care. What we want is someone like me or you or your friend or your parent to come up to you and give you 5 or 6 sentences, a link that you can look at and go, oh, that's somewhat reliable. I'm sure the content in there.
No, he's right.
He's
right. That's how I do it. I look at headlines for many things, but if I don't I need something like this. I need to hear a clear argument from a number of people because I'm not going to affect it.
The majority of this, I think, is just like, yes, there are so many sectors of government, because you look at the three that were on the panel there, and if you kind of look at it, you've got the older, respected guy on the right? He is your usual politician. He's like, I got in over my head once, and I just kind of used it to my benefit. And you can tell, like, he's got a smile. He's had a very good political career, and it's because up until this point, he was able to use it as his prestige. Because the higher government was able to trust him with that information, he was able to move forward because he's got a very good career. And now, for the first time in his life, his superiors were able to come to him, he says, my friends, and pester him and say, you are one of the only people that we can put up on a stage and people won't say that you're doing it for a career purpose because you already have, pretty much. Yep. And he admits that very openly. So that's one guy on the right. That's kind of like your demo right there, buddy, because that's the guys that you would be familiar with and wonder what the fuck they were doing this whole time. That was... Oh gosh, what was his name? Older
Broche?
gentleman. No, Broche. That's the middle. He's the whistleblower going through his own process right now. He's in trouble right now. He's kind of like the alien Snowden.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he's the one that got too far into his process. He was probably going to be put into higher government, even higher, but he decided to kind of go this route with it, or it was his mission. You can tell that he's very, very, very well spoken. He always says, I am willing to talk about this in a closed setting under the right. If it's in a high level area, I'll talk about it in a closed room. However, I won't talk about it in public. If it's classified information, I'm not allowed to put that out in public, but I can do it in a closed setting. So,
yes.
And that was Grush. Grush is just badass as fuck. And then the guy on the other side, he is also a bit more of like the in-between. He's like I'm a witness, kind of in that part where the other dude on the right was at when he first witnessed. And then they're all coming together on what the rhetoric is. And the issue is that Grush is pretty much admitting that in the higher order of government, the rhetoric has already surpassed the capacity to be understood in a general sense. It's already too layered. So like you can hear him speaking acronyms like nothing, and you see the guys in the Congress, the ranking members like, oh, okay, yeah, you just brought up FAR. We don't even say the word FAR unless it's a big deal. The federal acquisitions is not something you bring up. And it's exciting because like one of the issues is like even now we technically, how we're saying UAPs, well, it's only a matter of time before ETs gets updated too, because extraterrestrials isn't fair, considering the fact that we haven't yet with the psychedelia, like what Sun Knight was saying. Do we incorporate any intelligence into what would be considered alien?
Correct.
Like, what if it is the tree aliens? What if the trees do just have like a little hut somewhere in a forest that we put a cage around, and they got
blobs
tree
without brains? Yes,
Fern Gully is real, you guys.
You brought us back to something that I was cooking in my head as well, Stone, which is this whole name change. And so we've had name changes happen with I'm just going to use the word aliens because this is the story that they've attached to it. And so we've had name changes before, but this is the first name change that has been so dissociative, UFO, unidentified flying object, didn't come with a narrative of this object could be aliens. It came with an implication of it, but not a narrative surrounding it. Now we have a UAP, which is completely disidentified with the concept of aliens.
Aerial
the narrative.
Phenomenon.
Yeah, whereas the narrative is still 100% this is aliens. And so I find it, remember how I was saying before about it's really interesting how they're containing this into one particular narrative, because it is the most believable of the narratives, yet the name itself is opening themselves up to all possibilities.
Correct,
and so
because it's not a flying object.
Conflict, the message that they're saying, because governments are incredibly good. I mean, I'm coming from a corporate business and marketing and all of that kind of stuff background, and I can tell you now, this is branding 101. This is branding 101, and you're talking about some of the most intelligent, they understand how to do all of this stuff. They know how to present a message, and this is how they presented it.
The guy, he never saw it. Right? He never saw. He never saw.
What is your question?
All three of the people on the panel are witnesses.
Visual witnesses, for sure, and two of them have video.
Yeah, confirmed witnesses that have already been put through due process.
Not the crash thing or the inhuman pilot thing. That's hearsay, right?
That's not hearsay. The guy reported on it.
Grush hasn't. Grush has never seen anything.
No, but he was part.
Yeah, but Grush works with.
But
Groot is the
Alex,
middle
but
guy
Alex,
who works in it.
yes. But tell him what his credibility is. He was part of the program, and he knows the people that have seen it, and those people are still part of the program that is still within the government right now.
I mean, it could be a psyop. Like, right? They could have just. I mean, a reliable guy is a great guy to say some shit to get it. Whatever. We'll see.
The issue right
Yeah,
now is the seals, because
we'll
we're
see.
about we're gonna
The
have
main thing it's going to do is
this
take all of our
blue.
attention away from anything else and caught so maybe something else is happening, right? Maybe they just made
that's
it
a
too
great
far
point,
up.
I think
Alex.
They're missing something important, like they're
One
ready
mic.
to fuck
I want
already.
I want to bring up an important point. I think that's important. How do I word this?
Double positive, nice double positive.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Not worded importantly.
Let's say hypothetically that this is true. Okay, let's say hypothetically this is true.
What is this? Define this.
That there are biological entities, non-human biological entities.
Okay, got it.
That have crashed on Earth.
Correct. Yeah.
Bad pilots.
For
the evidence that didn't crash.
So if they're so advanced in technology than us, shouldn't we take into consideration that their tactics might be far superior than ours as well?
Yes.
Oh,
you know what I mean? Like they could be totally deceiving us. They could be totally deceiving us and telepathically like fucking with us. And we think we have the upper hand, and they literally are the ones like controlling us essentially.
What if it's the AI doing it to you already?
We can't even aim at. We can't. This is what I wanted to bring up, Alex. Is I think this does have something to do with AI.
Alien intelligence.
May I impede for a moment?
Please.
There's an important quote that Grush says. No, not Grush. That the Republican says on the right. I can't remember his name.
The older guy.
The older gentleman. Yeah, he has a quote towards the end that is very, very powerful. He repeats it about 3 times during the entire hearing. When asked, he says something along the lines of, "What I witnessed was of a origin that is that humans are incapable of creating, pretty much. Like that what he witnessed was something that the quote I love the most, I'm just going to get to the point, is of technology that we are incapable of having for another 10 to 20 years. That is a big deal. I think his admission there of 10 to 20 years is important.
Yes.
As well as like we can look into the split up of Space Force. Go ahead.
Well, you wouldn't have a time scale if you did not have a projection. So if they have a projection, that means that they feel that they've got a handle on partly what's going on and partly where it's going to go.
Mm-hmm. Like right
At
now,
least as far as that they believe that they do, with all appreciation to, I'm sorry, I don't know who said it before. Sorry, I kept going straight, but who said it before about the whole idea of a potential alien agenda and its ability to control us, and agreed with what you said, Sheba, that why are we not including the concept of AI in this? So, yeah.
The particular craft.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. Hello, Sam.
No, you finish with your thought. I'm just picking
the
on
craft
Sam.
that's fascinating that keeps coming up is not so much like this is a newer kind of UAP doodle for us. We've all had the saucer that looks like the milk saucer with the bubble. We've seen the pills. Yeah, we've seen the lights that know how to do laser light shows for us and spell things in the air. But this particular craft that they're referencing now, there's 2 particular ones that the government has always been scared shitless of. And I'm not going to go into my own citations here, but if you know me, I can gladly send you a couple pieces of paper if you need to dig into the doodles. And the 2 big craft that really scare the shit out of the government during all these. One is the big ones that take up the total horizon. You'll have several cases where that happens, where in the sky the craft is so large that it's like football fields and football fields and football fields. That happens now and again, and they do not. They hit the wall hard on that one, and so it's usually difficult for them to hide everything, and that's why they have a little bit here and there. This newest one of the same variety is the sphere and cube, and it is an invisible kind of translucent glass sphere with what appears to be a black cube inside of it.
No, it's the other way around. I thought it was. Yeah. It's the cube, and the sphere is inside the cube.
Yes. Okay.
Unless I'm
mistaken. It's like a translucent type weird sphere, but apparently its size is that of big because you can see it out the window of the plane, and that's the issue. Is if you can see it out the window of the plane.
Well, what if it's a fly on the window?
I don't think everybody in the plane will see the same fly that is on the window of one window.
And their 4 eyes, the guy was explaining, they're 2 separate vehicles, 2 separate jets, seeing the same thing. Like they've gone all over all this through their testimony.
Like they had a mission to go look at it, and people couldn't. They were literally incapable of it. Like turned around, like, yeah, my training didn't prepare me for this. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and think of all the things they see. I mean, these are soldiers, folks.
Soldiers are the best people in the world. I mean, fucking.
Now, I don't want to get. Oh, sorry, Alex. I don't want to go off topic too much, but earlier I had an epiphany that kind of boggled my mind. And I'm usually not one with a proclivity to entertain conspiracy on like a negative theme. Excuse me. But I was considering some of this stuff and, total operation kind of stuff. Someone mentioned PSYOP, and I thought to myself, not even this other stuff I won't get into, but with the whole Titanic submersible, right? Here's where things get interesting. This is where the debate kind of gets fun for me in my head. So this Titanic submersible, you're telling me that at the same time, within the same 2 months, that we're admitting that there are craft that are capable of moving through space-time, that even the richest of our humans aren't allowed secret access to a craft that won't blow up underwater. I think that there's something there. In both of these situations, you have a craft, and one of them was supposed to do something, and one of them's not supposed to do something, and we're kind of hoping it would be the other way around. And it's interesting because now you have almost an argument for the other field, where it's like, no, there's no way we have tech like that, because if we did, then even the rich guys would be at least given secret access so they don't blow up underwater, right? So I think it's interesting that these kind of things are happening at the same time, giving us an opportunity to sort of disseminate and balance our own ideas and ideals while disregarding one thing or focusing on another. Because like while this is happening, like someone said, you have the impeachment threat going on towards the cabinet right now. So the cabinet is in a lot of trouble, not even just from the Hunter Biden stuff, but a lot of other stuff.
Yep.
And then you got Martha's Vineyard, you've got the Titanic.
You've got the sex trafficking. You got the Obama Martha Vineyard, the cook that died in the freaking paddle boat. Okay.
Yep, and you've also got
a cardiac arrest. Okay. This was Martha Vineyard. We've got the war that's still going on.
You'll notice how both Russia and China have had information coming out recently about how they're in financial trouble. Between Ponzi schemes in China and the Ukraine war. These two, this narrative of these two superpowers having this ability to be able to do global takeovers, and that conversation a few years ago, the conspiracy theories that swept through all the unvaccinated of saying this is a plan for those takeovers, that's all been, shot and floating dead in the water, bleeding out as this is all rolling out.
And we've got like the COVID thing too, the tail end of that.
Yeah, what was COVID if this is coming out? No.
Yeah, well, and we've got also like they're not even tracking cases anymore. I don't know if you've heard about that.
Yeah,
they're not even tracking. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, I cut you off. I apologize.
No, it doesn't matter. It's off topic. Go ahead.
In regards to that, one of the things that go ahead.
Sorry. No, I was just going to say it's off topic is yes and no. Sorry, that was just a reaction.
I mean, yeah, it's like teetering.
With the COVID interest, and I don't want to talk about it too much. I think anyone in here has already heard me ramble about this, but during Trump's presidency, there was a particular bill that had a lot of information regarding these kind of things, whistleblowing, what freedom of speech extended to, or et cetera, et cetera. And one of the most interesting points, and I'll find a citation if anyone's interested, was that pretty much the gist of it, at this point, was two things. And this is a bill, so if anyone remembers Schoolhouse Rock, a bill has like a billion things, and it's just all hiding under the umbrella of one rule. So they probably passed a rule like, let's raise the bottle deposit, but at the very bottom was like, oh, by the way, here's the new freedom of speech update. So the freedom of speech update was this, for protections at least. You, as an American citizen, can talk about anything. You can suppose anything. You want to talk about the Galactic Federation of Light? You want to talk about classified information that you may have gotten access to, but you're not, because it's not classified information to you if you're not in the military. If you get access to classified information, it's not like you're in trouble because you got access to it, thus it's not classified. If it's classified, it shouldn't even end up in your hands. If it isn't, then it's already there for a reason. The idea was put forth through this bill that if it comes out of your mouth, it's okay to come out of your mouth with the exception of one matter. This is insane because before this, it was actually kind of an issue to talk about aliens. It was falling under some other interesting fields. But now you can talk about aliens. That's what it even says, like a lot of that stuff. But there's one thing we can't talk about for 50 years. That was weird. It had a timer on it. It was for 50 years, any discourse upon COVID-19 would be considered misinformation. Everything else is just supposed. Everything else is you being a free American, using your words to think out loud and to continue disseminating and cognitively coming to terms with what information you're trying to present or understand. However, if it's COVID, it's misinformation no matter what it is, because we are, the idea was because we cannot know the forecast of when we can understand it is 50 years. And I find that interesting that was one of Trump's most powerful footprints he left for us, was that we can say whatever we want, but you can't talk about COVID for 50 years. It was like a really interesting thing. And with the aliens at play, I don't know, but I didn't want to go off topic too much. So please go ahead. Thank you.
What do any of you think of the possibility of there being off-planet operations?
100%. Like an intergalactic federation?
I don't know if you want to call it that.
Like space stations, we already have them. But we already have them. We have space stations all over the place.
Yeah.
We can use that word without having to buy into the entire explanation for it, if that's
your question,
kind of heading in the direction.
Because we do have space stations, international ones at that are shared even. Yep.
Like what would they gain by keeping us in ignorance of that, essentially?
Control.
The less we know, the easier we can. What do we provide? Are we producing something for them or something?
May I?
Please go for it, Stan.
I have a thought, and this is a bit childish. I don't think that it really stays in theme with intellectual discourse, but I think it's fun to think about. And I call it the culmination point, and it's a very frightening thing if it's real. The culmination point is an idea that I'm working on, and I'm sure there's more sophisticated renderings of this, that any and all operations against, on, and to the people of the planet Earth are all for a culmination point, meaning excusable as long as the culmination occurs with 100% fidelity according to the original plan. So maybe it is that we upload ourselves. Maybe it is that we go to the moon for a vacation before a flood and then head off to Mars. Who knows? But if it is a culmination point, the scary thing is that all of it, everything that's happening right now, is meaningless in our attempts to try and fight or truly understand if it isn't us. And that's what hurts, is that, like, a lot of what we talk about doesn't involve us. A lot of the stuff will take 100 to 200 years to truly roll out. Like I want to talk about flying cars, infinite power, transhumanism, all these wonderful things. The point is that there's a true culmination point where we quote unquote evolve or take the next step or turn the page. This could just be a sentence at the beginning of the page, and that means that all of this is still, it's a recipe. So to answer your question, I think that is a possibility, that the manipulations, all of this, the space stations, it's like, when the day comes that we need to sit in the chair to either be shot out into space or have a plug put in the back of our head Matrix style, maybe the human biology, mental state, language, political systems, and everything have to be at a certain temperature, at a certain way. It has to taste just right. Otherwise it won't work. And it's probably not our generation. It's probably another generation ahead of us. And so we're being manipulated and controlled to ensure that generation gets where it needs to go. And that's where religion gets scary, because what if it is us? How do we don't want to get into life after death, but it is like, if you knew you weren't going to get shot to Mars, but you needed to live life a certain way to make sure your grandkids would, but you're like, well, I'm not having grandkids, why do I care? That's a big deal. Unless somehow, some way we can agree on a planetary level to, tell the people yeah, no, your soul actually will still be here. And even though you may not feel like you're going to get to the culmination point, the culmination's point intention is to bring you along with from the past. Like that's kind of stuff that we're just not capable of rendering in our brains at this time, and perhaps it's not important for us to, because again, it's not us. But that's something I like to think of often, and it is just like a supposed kind of comfort blanket for me when I start to wonder why I'm able to be so manipulated. Where is the light of God? Where is the love? Where is the truth? Why are we in this information age of, being turned into putty, Soylent Green? Like that helps me get comfort, whether it's a Abrahamic feeling, of okay, transcendence into heaven for the souls of mankind, or even something more scientific, because sweet, we're just going to get into the rocket and life goes on, and at least I helped put a piece of sand in the hourglass. But I hope somebody here
that brings up like oh my goodness. Like how do we know that the whole idea of a creator and all that could be tactics used by them on us, to believe that there's this creator, but really it's a an non-human biological entity that is in etheric form or something like that, and to assimilate the human spirit back into the cycle of creation or something. It you need to go to it, and you go to it. It's like a mosquito going to a light.
Keep going.
It's like a mosquito going to a light. Like,
I think that one doesn't. I mean, that definitely is important what you said, but I don't think it completely matches up with the narrative of what we're seeing roll out. Simply because they have not been in a position, from an intelligence perspective, to understand, collate information, research, study, come to us with this stuff. Like religion and how we viewed all of that kind of stuff has lasted thousands of years, versus suddenly this now being very honed and specific, So, yeah, I think that the narrative that's being used is very deliberate. And I think it's quite interesting as well to bringing that up, because, I mean, in America, I don't know if you guys know the data, but what's the percentage of America alone that are Christian?
A large percentage.
A large percentage.
The rising religion globally is Islam, and secondly, spirituality or non-spiritual, like even Luciferian, like Lucifer, what is it? Luciferianism, Luciferianism. Yes.
So the reason why I bring that up, and specific to America, is because this is a press release coming from America, and so it's going to fall back on the whatever is the current status quo for subscripted belief is what it's going to fall back on. And in America, I'm under the impression the highest percentage is Christianity. And
true,
so
but
now
the trend,
we have,
but wait a minute. The trend is going in the opposite direction, though. Just because the numbers are greater in terms of there being more Christians than anything, but the retention rate is dwindling, and that's really what to focus on. Is people are losing their religious faith and moving more towards a spiritual path or atheists. It's true. Look at the statistics, but at least what
this is really, what you're saying is really important, but
yes.
And so I don't want to discount it, but for the point I was getting across, it might come across a bit different if I'll get that part out. So look, there's a big percentage of the American population who are Christian, and then you can go down the rest of the line. And so just taking that catchment alone, they will they're looking at what's happening in spirit. The ones who are awakened enough to be aware that something's going on, they're making sense of it through the lens of spiritual warfare. Yeah, angels against demons and all of this kind of thing. And so considering the fact that we've got a population of a percentage who have that view, and this is going all the way up into your government. Like, I come from a country where, I mean, it's acceptable if our prime minister is of any religious domination, just as long as he doesn't enforce it on us. In comparison to in your country, you guys have a very different relationship with it. Yeah. To the point where, from an Aussie point of view, and conversations I've had with other fellow Aussies, we find it really intimidating. How religiously focused your government is in comparison to us. We feel intimidated when we imagine transposing that into our world, at least from the conversations I've had with locals. And so I just find it really interesting that you've got this percentage all the way up through the government, where the conversation is always about how God is involved. And then we've got aliens showing up and no one's turning around and going, is God involved? Could they be angels or demons? Nothing.
But but let me ask you, where do you get the idea that the government talks about God? Because there's a clear separation of church and state that has been established since our forefathers. And obviously on the money it says in God we trust and things of that nature. But in present day, what reference are you referencing when you say the government talks about God?
From my limited Aussie perspective, because I can only talk on, the social conversations or whatever conversations I've had with people and heard what they have to say, we don't really talk about things in that context at all. And yes, you're right. I mean, look, I've got limited knowledge of how the American system works. I do perceive that separation is 100% as you're saying it, but there's still this kind of underpinning of believing in God being more acceptable than not. And it kind of shines through with those little bits and things, like in God we trust and stuff like that. And so I think that it's, I guess, when you are a part of a different country for such a long period, like I grew up in Australia, you guys, I think the majority of you grew up in America, it's very difficult to explain a vibe until you even traveling to a country doesn't give it to you. You have to be a part of that country for a while to be able to sense that vibe. And so from the outside, when I see things and hear things like that in America, I get this kind of, I'm kind of glad we don't have those little extra insertions in our stuff. It actually, I find it intimidating when I see that kind of stuff. And so, yeah, I find it fascinating that there's been no mention of it at all. No mention of, we don't completely know what this is. We know that, there could be a religious explanation. There could be a metaphysical explanation. There could be a scientific explanation to do with other realms or dimensions because of all we're learning. I mean, psychedelics, this isn't the swinging 60s anymore. All the major universities around the world are doing testing with psychedelics. In a lot of Western countries, they're rolling out microdosing to the public. These experiences that people have from psychedelics when they're taking large amounts, and what they're interacting with is so acceptable now by science that it is becoming mainstream in psychology. Yet they haven't brought that up. There's a very tunneled narrative associated with this. I find that interesting, considering.
So we've got a statistic here in the chat, thanks to Stone. America's Christian majority is shrinking and could dip below 50%. And could dip below 50% by 2070. The U.S.'s Christian majority has been shrinking for decades. A Pew Research Center study shows that as of 2020, as of 2020, about 64% of Americans identify as Christian. 50 years ago, that number was, let's take a guess. Anybody want to take a gander? Not you, Stone, obviously. And nobody cheat. Take a guess. What
80,
was that number?
70 or 80.
90% 50 years ago.
Haha. Wow.
90. Yes.
But look.
And how does that balance out? How does that balance out with the
aliens?
population of that time and this time?
True. I think of that a lot with a lot of statistics. Like the same with slavery. Even there's more slavery than there was. There's more slavery today than there was back then, just due to the fact the population is so much larger. By technicality, like people enslaved, there's more people enslaved today than there has ever been in the history of man, because there's more people today than in the history of man. On a side note, though, Sun Knight, a citation I think you'll be really you'll find lovely. And you don't have to watch it tonight. I'll be throwing some bits and pieces of it up tonight in the videos. But there's a press hearing with Dr. Greer, and he gets really into how the Vatican has such an important role in all of this. I really think it's like a prequel to this Congressional hearing, because it does really get into it. And that's the big issue, is that like in the Space Force, even the Space Force and the Vatican are having to work really hard together. In terms of
I'm not surprised. I mean,
Because they've been in charge
relevant
for as long as we know. They're the ones who had the piece of
biggest
paper that said,
telescope.
when aliens do alien things, what do we tell people?
Yes.
And they're like,
yes.
First tell them nothing if you can, and then tell them God if you can. And if that doesn't work, kill them. And if you can't kill them, then just make them Christian.
The Vatican invested in the most powerful telescopes. People don't realize they're very much in the know.
Sorry, I got interrupted. I get excited like
Sounds
Stone.
like Jesus is an alien.
Look, that goes 100% with what I was saying before, which is this. I mean, Sheba, you were 100% right to bring up this dwindling numbers in Christianity as per example. But even if you look at it being a 50% margin now and not worry too much about the dwindling numbers, that's still 50% of the population that will be wanting to hear about this from a religious perspective, and they didn't even address it. And I think that really is very
they
much
haven't yet addressed it.
Sure, but that's a big thing to miss in the first, jump into it. And
in all fairness, they have addressed it. To Stone's point.
Let me get this one out. So the where I'm going with this is this. So whether or don't, they haven't in the initial outlay. It's a pretty big thing to skip over, considering a 50% majority of your country is Christian, according to dwindling numbers. And as you well pointed out, that's doing a handover into modern spirituality, and modern spirituality is a collaboration between all of the different perspectives of what it could be. Yeah. And so really the only one that you could probably really go on to the evidential scientific side is aliens. That's all you've really got, where we can turn around and say, okay, based on how our technology is evolving, we can understand these concepts. We've talked about it for a while, all of that kind of stuff. We've told the story in cinema, etc. And so it would be of all explanatory cells, this would be the easiest cell for a country that is moving from believing it would be ancients and demons to believing it would be aliens. That's the story you'd want to stick to, because that's the one that's going with the tide of the collective thought of the population.
What if they try to push a narrative that, well, the aliens say that God and the devil exist, so it must be true?
Sure. That's one way to go.
To try or anything that they say, essentially, how do we know that anything that they say to us is an authority or
Yeah, you have to be skeptical when the government's telling you this stuff, because for so many years and decades or whatever the fuck, they've always covered up so many things behind all these little beautiful words, and they've lied to us, and et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, keep an open mind, be skeptical.
I think you bring up a really good point there, both of you. And this is just my honest opinion. Oh no, this isn't my honest opinion. This is my honest interpretation. This is my honest interpretation of the information here. And I just want to put it forth. I think the crisis that our government is facing, and I'm empathizing, not as a blind patriot. I think the crisis that the governments of the world are facing is that exactly. How are we going to go about this? Now, here's the fun thing. It's not going to be a letter in the mail or a knock at the door. It's not going to be on TV on every TV set in America like when we went to the moon. It's just not going to happen that way anymore. We live in the information age. So the idea is, okay, do we just cater to people and give them what they want if it isn't going to affect them in the long run? Because that's the thing, is about 80% of people, no offense, they don't really care either way, and their whole lives will be benefited by not knowing and living in a peaceful and clandestine fashion. That, like, if they have absolute, like, what are they going to go do? Like, make alien friends? No, they have 20 years left on this earth because they got lung cancer, and they, put 10% of their money in a bucket every day, or every week. Like, these people deserve those lives. So do we cater to every demo? And then what about the teenagers, the 10-year-olds that actually in 40 years might have a career working with aliens? Well, those people probably need to be given much more information. Then we need people to be given less information. We also need people who are already under a government of limitation to be accounted for. How much information are they going to be allowed to seek? How much of it will be hidden from them entirely? How much disinformation is fair to make sure that those that we've already kept under the wrap so that they can stay tucked in don't get woken up while they're sleeping? And and then what about those that say those people sleeping have it better than us? They get to be asleep, or those people don't deserve to be knocked out. They need to see the real world. That's the real problems I think the world governments are facing right now, is mostly that, like what you said, there's so many people and there's so many ways to make accountability seem taken. There's really only one truth, but the real truth is it probably is about like 8 million people total that will get to ever understand the full truth. And as applies to us, it's where we can live our lives. And I think at the end of this particular congressional hearing, there's a particular quote that one of the more powerful ranking members says, and he says along the lines of this. Well, later another one says the egg has already been cracked, but what this is actually about is the foundation necessary to build avenues and to build paths that will lead people like us and other officials, whether you're an airline pilot, whether you're a military pilot, whether you had a grandpa who told you something while he was smoking that joint, before he died of cancer, and you're like, I really don't know how to take that information because, grandpa happened to be in a room where he did say he'd never say something, but now he has dementia, like I've had that. I've had old military people tell me things I wish they didn't. And I think what he's trying to do, what this congressional hearing is trying to do in some sense is help build the foundation to make those paths for us so that we cannot be whistleblowers, walking around acting like we're getting raped, or we can actually start playing songs, we can start doing parades. And if there are people that need to be protected, if there are people that need to feel comforted or safe, or even targeted individuals, because we're only about 6 or 7 years away from the disclosure of what a targeted individual is. That's another thing we haven't even gotten into. After all this alien stuff goes down, they're either going to pawn a lot of the targeted individuals on the alien campaign, or they're going to have to come forward and say, yes, that we have been secretly experimenting on the people of Earth, and that when we find somebody, we make them a focus in the internal government through data acquisition. These are all scarier, real things. Like, maybe there are no aliens, and that's just a cover-up so that they can put more timer on that. There's a this is stuff I don't like to talk about, but since we're getting heady, the average is 1 in 20 people have 24-hour surveillance.
Didn't they say they saw an alien body or something?
There's a lot there. Have you seen the footage yet, Sam?
No, of an alien body?
I recommend you watch the last 20. Yeah, the last 20 you'll like.
They confirmed.
Do they have footage of an alien body?
That's classified. That's classified. What was? It is. It's classified. What they did there's all types of footage floating around that's been around forever that who knows if it's real or not. The point, specifically as it pertains to yesterday in this formal, regulated rollout, of what I consider to be disclosure, in my humble opinion, is this gentleman confirmed in his testimony that there has been craft that has been shot down and recovered, and pilots within the craft that has been shot down and recovered, and the pilots were non-human beings of biologic matter. And he didn't see it with his own eyes. However, he has been part of the programs, right, internally, the classified programs, and he knows of the people that have seen it, and those people that he knows that have seen it are still part of the program. So this paper trail is very short. Do you understand? It is not going to take very much to confirm this. And this is why this is even happening, because the investigation has led us here. And the things that they've done, the sidebar for some of the confidential information, it's only going to widen the scope and scale of this, what I consider humbly to be disclosure, in my humble opinion. Yes. And to bring up the pay poll is imperative, because there's a lot there, okay? And they are very well aware. And Stone, remind me what the official statement was of the Pope. He brought up aliens years ago, the new Pope. I couldn't believe it. I almost had a heart attack. This new Pope came and he addressed aliens. And it was in a favorable way. It was something like it is a strong possibility or something. I don't know, I'm paraphrasing here, and I don't want to do that. Do you recall, Stone, specifically what it is? Because I know that you and I share similar interests in this for quite some time.
In an interview, French journalists Paris's Match brought up NASA's discovery last July of a new planet. This is from July 20. This is recently, which resembles Earth, and this is to the Pope. Honestly, I wouldn't know how to answer. The Pope replied, explaining that while scientific knowledge has until now excluded the possibility of other thinking beings in the universe. Until America was discovered, we thought it didn't exist, but instead it existed. But in every case, I think that we should stick to what the scientists tell us, still aware that the Creator is infinitely greater than our knowledge. So pretty much, yeah, even this month, he's the Pope's stance
leaving it
is,
open.
even if there's aliens, still love God. But yeah, there might be.
Leaving it open. He's leaving it open. That's amazing.
Trust the scientists, but just make sure that your scientists still believe in God too.
That's amazing. I mean,
What
I'm
a
not
cool
just
job the
commenting
Pope
on
has.
God.
Say whatever you want, as long as it follows God.
They talked about it in the hearing, about improving the system for reporting these incidents, so people can come forward without risk of being reprimanded or threatened or what have
or
you,
even made fun of,
or even made fun of, or
Or their
so I
family.
think that's a big step if they can get that figured out, and more people can start coming forward, and then more information and everything can be assimilated, in that way.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but woo, I'm so thankful to be alive during this time. I mean, these are amazing times. I mean, the paradigm shifting between AI, I mean, everything you could possibly imagine technologically, and now this. Oh, I'm so thankful. And this is so exciting. What an exciting time to be alive.
it's definitely like the older gentleman said in an interview after the congressional hearing. The egg is already cracked.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
The egg is
Oh
cracked,
yeah.
and it cracked yesterday.
Oh my God. On record. This isn't a History Channel. This isn't the science. I wouldn't even say History Channel has that UFO.
Yeah, he's like, I don't watch History channels.
I'm just saying though. This is
very
happening. This is
reputable.
happening in our Congress. This is on record, folks. This is in the history books, his story books. It's made his story books, folks. Okay, the kids, the childrens in 50 years are going to be reading about this, or actually probably not. It's probably going to be uploaded. Let's just be honest.
On the anniversary, mind you, it's on the month anniversary of the work of the headless working from Robert Anton Wilson, the right of the
Really
head.
interesting.
Yeah,
That's
it's a complex, like, esoteric working that was adopted, and he
anniversary of how
redid one of the Crowley workings, which is like a large spell.
What about him?
The headless right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, if you look
How
into the
long
headless
ago?
right, it's done systematically in like a thing here. I'll pull up a citation.
Well, you said this is the anniversary. What is the anniversary? 50th,
Oh, of Robert
100th?
Anton Wilson. Yeah, I think it's 50 of Robert Anton Wilson's reenactment of the headless right, and then there was the original headless right done by another person, which was a reenactment of a headless right done by somebody.
Mm.
Here we go. Headless right. Once often referred to as the bornless ritual or Liber Samak. In modern times, the headless rite is a powerful ritual that has gained no small following in the Western magical community for over a century now. Originally one of the more famous rituals of the Greek magical papyri, it was popularized by Aleister Crowley. Perhaps most famously, this ritual has been used famously for the work of knowledge and conversion of the holy guardian angel as a sort of modern replacement of older approaches such as the Abrahamian operation, but has many other uses that may not be immediately apparent. And there's a couple. This is a really long list of like getting into it. So, but I highly recommend looking into it, considering the synchronicity that not just anybody, like anybody could do the headless rite, but a much more significant iteration of it was compounded, like not even a few days before this hearing.
Wow.
My neighbors hate me. I'm outside smoking a cigarette, and I could tell that like they could hear everything, and they're just like, "Fuck you."
Or they're stimulated.
I hope so. I hope that the passive.
I would love
I
to
think that's
hear
what it comes down to.
this.
We are the acting catalyst of this operation. That's what's scary. Is it's like we are not the witnesses of an operation. We are the acting participants in what this is. In an attempt to witness from the highest order. There's somebody out there, not maybe listening to us, but there's something out there definitely listening to us, ensuring that this information is regulated in a fashion that can be organized so that in the future, be it this generation or another, perhaps 10 or 20 years, when that craft happens to just zoom over your baseball game because it needs to go get some Soylent Green, that there's a procedure in play and that they can anticipate what kind of, nope or don't look up situation occurs. Like even today, it's like a beautiful, beautiful day here. Green. Okay, the cars are getting angry. The aliens are mad at me. And there's one single cloud just floating right up here, just like in the movie. Just one little oddly symmetrical little puff cloud. No other clouds. Blue sky.
Yes. Does anyone else have any other thoughts they'd like to share before we bring this to a close? I know, Stone,
I
you
would
got
like
yes.
a link. Sorry, I would like a link of the congressional hearing that you guys watched. I know that I can Google it, but what you would have gone to and watched in America might not be what comes up on the active search.
Correct. It's in the invite.
I will be streaming. I'll send some links as well, and I'll be streaming an event at 8. I'm going to be doing some bits and pieces of the congressional hearing, some bits and pieces of the press hearing from a month earlier that helped make this happen with Dr. Greer. And then we'll also be watching some cartoons and music videos to kind of compound the information and help reinforce the zeitgeist of this information being presented to the people. But in terms of official documents for like CCTV stuff, we'll definitely do the congressional hearing and the press release from Dr. Greer on the Vatican, and he will be speaking. So at 8, there's going to be like an hour of footage about where the Vatican has its place in this, as well as we might get to see 4 or 5 other direct witness reports from reputable military personnel who have already gone through due process and know what rhetoric to use. It should be exciting. But I'll be
when
sure
are you
to
doing this
make
event?
sure the links are there.
That's
8 o'clock. My time. Yeah.
Like in 2.5 hours. 2.5 hours.
2.5 hours from now. I will be there. I consider it one of my biggest gratitudes right now to be going through this information with both you and both of you are listening, so Sheba and Stone, because between my resonance on your enthusiasm, Sheba and Stone, how much you've been asked in the air down that rabbit hole on the study on this topic, that's one meaty sandwich I can't wait to take a bite into. So yeah, I want to make sure I'm seeing that. I'm so glad that I'm in Wi-Fi for once and I can actually sit and watch it and be uninterrupted by a signal.
Just be warned. If just a little warning to those that come to the event, it is going to get goofy sometimes because my priority on this is to reinforce the zeitgeist, because there's a lot of content out there that is like only 2 or 3 years old that just so heavily reinforces not only the empirical truth of all this in the timeline, but that spiritual inclination of thought that comes to us when we realize that there's an apophenia, that there is a almost post, like a causality, what is it called when that happens? It might be post causality, but the point is like retro causality with the zeitgeist here. I don't know if anyone remembers 2008, 2005 when that was what we were focusing on then, and it left the collective sphere so quickly. I mean, I remember in middle school being taught by high schoolers, like, did you know that the media brainwashes you through, slow inoculation? And I'm like, wait, what? And then we all gripped onto that for a minute and let go of it. How long are we holding on to this? How long are we holding on to it, you guys?
Can I address something?
Of course.
Are they from your understanding of what's going on right now? They seem to be focusing on the information provided from, like, I think it's like 2004 and forward. Now, is there any, like, why aren't they talking about
Anything declassified,
50
the way the
years ago.
military goes. Yeah. On that note, and this is where I'm just going to be honest. I'm not going to give any of my prerequisite here, so you can take it for a grain of salt. But I'll just say this: the U.S. Military has a proclivity of doing things in a certain way, and one of their favorite ways of doing something is this: we have a bunch of information that no one's allowed to see. Now they're allowed to see it. That's all they do. They don't do anything past that point. So, like, if you want to get access to that information, you have to find it yourself. All they do is take the lock off the box. They don't ever open it. So, like, all of that stuff that's older, it's out there. You just either need to find a reputable source or find a reputable reiteration or rendering. My best advice, and I don't want to sound like a super fan, Dr. Greer is a really good stepping stone for heading in the right directions, as well as becoming more comfortable with going to the CIA website. If you can become comfortable going to the CIA website, you can navigate their website and get access to some very wonderful information. And once you get used to that, you'll really enjoy yourself.
I've been, and I am familiar with Greer and his work.
Yes.
But they do need to prioritize getting some of the older information out so that they can build a foundation. I just think they're yielding to Hollywood for that, of like just keeping that kind of theme. You know, I think with things like Arrival and such like
Independence Day, like they're the threat.
That's a good point, because, you know, we talk about how they control the media, but we know that they control the narrative that gets vented to us to a certain degree. And so
I have to step away for a moment. I'm so sorry, you guys. I will be right back.
Okay. No worries. And you're breaking up, Sunlight.
How do we know that, like, the technology that we have is already not reverse engineered alien tech? You know?
Exactly. And this is what I've been waiting to say is, think of where were folks 10, 50 years ago. You know what I mean? And see where we are now. Like, come on now.
Yeah.
There's got to be some kind of catapult of tech there. And it's now on record that they've been reverse engineering this whole time. So more than 50 years, since 1930s. And it's probably even more than that. Because remember, they're letting us know this. This isn't information is squeezed through. No, they're allowing us to know this right now. And my question is, why now?
Yeah, that's a big question I keep asking myself. Yes.
Why now? Why now? Why are you letting this happen now? Why are you letting these men come forward now? Why are you letting them say what they've been allowed to say now? When never before has anything been allowed ever on record like that. And anything that has ever been surfaced has been redacted as classified. So why?
Yes, their plans have reached a phase where they reveal things.
Yes.
All part of the plan for whatever they're up to.
100% agree, Newman. Yes. So what are they up to? It doesn't take away from the fact that they're saying that it exists. Now, that's what I'm all excited about, because finally the vindication of not just myself, but all the people that have ever said anything about the potential, about having experienced it, about or have researched it in wonder, the vindication of not being crazy, not being a conspiracy theorist, not being your head is in the clouds, or, you know. What's that? Was that Satori?
Not sure.
We seem to be experiencing some technical difficulty all the way around. I don't know. Is Sun Knight back? Nope. Well, whoo! I tell you.
Yeah, can you hear me?
You're breaking up, but yes.
Can you hear me better now? Sorry. There's patchy reception where I am, like there always is, and it's not because Australia has shit reception, it's because of where I live. It's a big country. Yeah, so look, the thing that you keep pressing on, I think, is the most important part, which is why now. I think you're ready. And so to me, the just another side note on that concept. Why now? I mean, we're looking at this like they're hiding something, and there's a huge infrastructure behind what they're hiding. There's very clear, structure in how they're doing it, and it is irrational. And so that leaves us open to this conjecture. But the whole idea of that gives the impression that they know what they're doing and what they're talking about. And so in the same sense that I was saying before about the whole, okay, they're selling this narrative as a UFO kind of story, but then what about the religious population, and that temporarily for now being unaddressed? This whole aspect from our perspective is the they've got more information they're letting on. They know more than they are telling us. They must know more than we realize, and they need to tell us what it is. But they're also looking at this from whatever lens that they're looking at, and that will have its limitations. And so they might think that they completely understand, and they've rolled out a whole agenda associated with what they think that they understand, but it doesn't mean that they've got a full grip on it either. And you know, the whole thing smells of we're threatened, we need to damage control this. If not, then they would just herd us into cages and pins like they did with COVID. They definitely feel that they need to contain something. And so if they need to go to such efforts to contain something, there's only one or two things. They either feel that they fully understand it, or they really know that they don't fully understand it. So they're trying to pick the best option that they've got in order to be able to do that. And it is very much all paralleling with the whole spiritual awakening process. You know, and then everyone that we talk to who's going through this process realizes as they go down the tunnel of it that what they originally thought that this was about and how it's playing out and what it actually is different to their original thought. No one ends up staying on their original thought as they go down this tunnel. You know, it starts to radically change them. And so I can't help but think that if this is coming from a shadow space and this narrative is coming from a shadow space, that they haven't passed through yet to be able to see more of reality of their own situation as it is either. That's just my punt. And that's why I think why now.
I think there's a good chance that the governments, I mean, I think more than just America have been in contact with extraterrestrial life and intelligence. I think that this is just, we're just scratching the surface here. I think it's far beyond anything you can imagine. That's what I feel. Again, what do I base that on? I mean, I could talk about all the things that I've experienced just in my lifetime in terms of research and footage and, you know, using discernment and deducing based on across all things. I think there's a high likelihood that not just the United States of America's government or black operations, however, other governments in the world have been in contact with extraterrestrial intelligence, and yeah, it's not novel. However, public facing is a different story, as we've already discussed.
Can I make a suggestion?
But of course.
What do you think of the idea of us trying to do a like a channeling meditation with aliens, essentially,
I would love that.
in the meditation room or something at some
Let's
point?
do it. Like, if you want to host the event, let's do it. I've been trying to get people to do a CE5 on this server for over a year. Since when I first screened the CE5, Dr. Greer's CE5, which is Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind, for those of you that aren't aware of this documentary of Dr. Greer's. And it's a method that uses consciousness and meditation to open oneself up to experience contact. And the fact that we're utilizing technology could definitely lend itself to some signs of sorts. Like, it could be frequencies, it could be sound, it could be, you know, it's interesting. I don't know how familiar you are specifically, Mikey, with CE5, but it actually gives you directions on driving the experience in real time. So when the contact happens, telepathically, like, just feel it. Like, you know, I know it sounds ethereal and foo-foo, but bear with me here. It's something along the lines of, you know, want them to do a zigzag or a triangle or a circle, and it happens. And he shows extensive footage in his documentary that, you know, has been widely, you know, embraced and also you can imagine, criticized. And I think there's going to be a huge resurgence as a result of this. Again, it has been 24 hours. We got to let we got to let it breathe. And this
Yeah,
is
give it a
huge.
couple months.
Yeah, and see what happens. It's I'm telling you, this is going to change pop culture and our history. It's in retroactively, causality wise as well, because now we're going to look back at things completely different. The more we know and the more we experience. And again, and this is what I love about Dr. Greer, is he doesn't just leave you. He's like, go experience it for yourself. And I'm a huge advocate for that. Look, I will sit here. I'm a very strong personality. I speak from my heart. I live with my heart. I will tell you how I feel. That doesn't mean that's law or it's the truth. You know what I mean? That's my passionate experience to this point. I encourage everyone to go experience for themselves, learn for themselves, ask questions, say what you feel. This is what life is
Yeah.
all about. Yes.
Wait,
Tell us,
so that Dr. I don't even know what I was going to say anymore. Oh, that technique that you mentioned about Dr. Greer is essentially is it like a visualization or a meditation where you basically encounter deities, entities, spirits, and all this stuff, but more
what it
focused
is
on
it's a
like
meditation.
I
aliens?
own the app on my phone, so I could
Well, there
try
you go.
and
So
play it.
why don't
play
you,
it some
Cool.
yeah,
more.
Mike, you make the events. Here, I'll give you the giver role. So does Numinous. We've talked about this. Why don't you guys could even collaborate and do a formal event? I'm down. I'll be front and center. Why don't you guys talk about what the process is, and then why am I talking about it? I don't even have the damn app.
The
I'll leave
numinous
this
and Mike event.
I'll leave this to Mike.
The
Sure, I'll spearhead
Newman
it.
Mike.
Yeah, but why don't you describe what the process is for Satori? That's his question.
Oh, it's been a while. I'd have to download the app on my phone again. I don't even have it on my phone right now.
So
But
my
I did
understanding
buy
of it
I
is it's
did
a
buy the app many
meditation.
years ago, and yeah,
Okay.
he has like guided meditations and stuff on there, and you get in you kind of get into like a meditative state, and then there's like I think there's a level of visualization that has to take place, and you have to behave in a certain manner, you can't be, hey, you fucking aliens, come here, like you got to be respectful,
On a
and
frequency.
like you got there's a
Intentionally.
certain mannerism that you have to adopt, kind of thing.
Could you use this technique if you're taking like DMT or a high amount of mushrooms? Because you encounter like entities in those spaces too. Could you use like that Dr. Greer navigation technique to essentially do exactly what you said, but in the psychedelic state?
You probably could, but it's recommended that you don't.
So I'm assuming it's already been tried.
About that?
Huh?
I'm saying, so I'm assuming it's already been tried if they recommend not to do it that way.
Yeah. It's because you gather together a group using the app to see who's nearby who also has the app. You arrange a group meditation. You go out into a field where there's little light pollution, if possible, and you do the group meditation, which you sort of reach out into the universe and try to find the aliens. And when you find them, you show them how to get from where they are to where you are. Like you just backtrack back to Earth. It's very systematic. And then you repeat this for a while, and then you sit around outside and wait for anything to show up. And there's also music you play in the background. You look for specific signs, and you bring certain equipment, etc.
Yeah, it's like you're a magnet for aliens.
Yeah.
You're sending in a
utilizing our
telepathic signal,
consciousness.
and they come to you.
Yes. So what is the connection then? It could be DNA wise. It could be hereditary. It could be consciousness. It could be us. We talked about this, Sotariti. It could be us in the future.
Yeah,
evolved,
future
dimensionally
humans.
traveling. Yeah.
Yeah, coming back in time, trying to show us probably things that might happen in the future, because collectively not everybody has psychic abilities, or they're not awakened yet. Maybe that's why they're coming here. I'm just saying. I don't know why aliens are here.
That's a mind screw right there.
It is.
What if it's like a future you,
Well, or descendant. And so it's very apocalyptic, honestly, when you think about it. Yeah, it's very apocalyptic. It's very much in line with, certain things that are religious, certain things, Nostradamus. Like, this is like, bruh, this is par for the course. I'm here for it. I'm excited about it. We are more than our minds, folks. There is more than meets the eye. And this is another huge step. Not to paraphrase. One giant leap for man, one small step for man, one giant leap for
Giant leap for
mankind.
mankind.
Yeehaw! Yes. With a side of freedom fries. I know I'm being silly.
Now get your
But
alien flags, your alien t-shirts, your alien cowboy hats, your
yes,
fucking
it's gonna
alien lassos,
merch,
1999.
bro. I'm telling you, this is gonna
This just
affect fashion,
raises so many
pop
questions
culture.
This raises so many questions about everything
Investment.
everything that's been coming out over the past 50 years or more, just that's been labeled as conspiracy and a hoax, and it's just like, oh no, that's not real, don't look at that kind of nonsense,
Vindication.
it's just like the moon
They've been
bases and
lying.
shit like that, like
Yes.
there's like, oh my goodness,
there's so much. I feel you, Mikey. My brain
and
is still like.
even not that long ago, I can't remember who it was now, but not that long ago, there was somebody who had came out. It didn't get a lot of attention, but somebody came out talking about how the Intergalactic Federation or whatever on Mars, and they have like an operation on Mars going on, and they're in works with them, kind of thing, somehow.
Dude, that could be the future. That could be time communicating across timelines. Like, look, the verbiage they kept using yesterday is physics as we know it. This is beyond physics as we understand it. That to me is insane, because there's a greater physics, and we're talking more. You could say metaphysics. I think it's beyond. I think that this ideology of space and time are definitely a mental construct, and that there's ways to manipulate that and pierce through that. And I think through Dr. Greer's CE5, I've never done it myself. However, what I do know about it is very compelling and alluring for me personally, because of these the potential there to utilize consciousness. It makes perfect sense. He's the first one I've ever heard. I cried when I watched Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind. I watched it leading into the pandemic, and I couldn't believe it, because all the other, even his first film, all the other things of all the other ufologists and everything, they just drop all this stuff on you, and you're left there at the end of the film like, ugh, what do I do with all this? This guy takes you to the things, and then he's like, look, but don't take my word for it. You go see for yourself. And here's a freaking methodology that I've developed and have freaking rolled it out all over the world. And we've done respective groups, and here's our video captures of some of these events, and you see what they experienced, and you hear from people that were part of it. He launched an app. It was a whole thing, and it's still there. And I think this is going to really pick up a lot of steam post the reaction to this what I consider to be the onset of disclosure on a formal on the record methodology from our United States government. They're allowing it. Yes. And again, don't forget to question why. Why is this happening now?
Maybe when I think about it, the thing that comes to mind, it's like an epiphany kind of thing that comes to mind, is the past 50 plus years have been a desensitization kind of stage, where they're desensitizing the world to the idea of non-human biological entities, or even non-biological entities. And we've reached that point of desensitization, and now they're moving on to the next step of coming out,
trying to desensitizing you with the next thing until
it's a rollout.
It's like, okay, it's like, now
It's
you guys get that
unveiling.
aliens are a thing and UFOs are a thing. It's like, okay, now we're gonna tell you whatever they're gonna tell us. I don't know.
I wonder how absurd the situation actually is, though. Because if you're talking about aliens, that's like a whole can of gummy bears. I don't like to say worms anymore because it's 2023. I have to say gummy bears. Yeah. Like, what if, and I'm just speculating here, I'm just making this up with my heart and my third eye and everything. But what if there's a scenario, or what if this is actually going on, where there are a group of aliens and they're just threatening them to live out a specific life and give out specific information and give out specific technology, and they're actually engineering us and programming us this way instead of just doing the whole DNA thing where they rip us out and probe us or whatever, and using psychological tactics and the whole desensitizing thing to just make us a certain way to think until eventually we become a certain type of species where they take us away from this planet and take us away to their homeland, and then they live in this planet and we just trade places, and then they're trying to like test us to become some other fucking thing. I mean, you never know.
It's true. We don't. I think it's all possible. For sure. At this juncture, for sure.
So I had an example of this, because we were talking about what if they're interacting, because a common theme I keep finding is that when they talk about in the past they've talked about ETs and so on and so forth, like the Greys, for example, being like these telepathic beings, right? Or a common theme anyway, not necessarily just the Greys, but a lot of these aliens are telepathic in some manner. So it makes me wonder, like I had a thought a few minutes ago when I was thinking, I can't remember now. I had a thought, and then it was like something snatched the thought out of my mind almost. And it's like, how, like, where does that go? Where is that going? Where's that thought going? Like could that be an interaction of a biological entity or a non-biological entity of some kind that is interacting with my mind, and he's like, oh, he doesn't need to go down that path of conversation, so I'm just gonna pluck this out of there, and then he won't talk about that thing, and he doesn't go down that road of experience kind of thing.
Mike and Ike?
Yeah.
May I offer something?
Mm-hmm.
So in response to what you just said with the like acquisition of thought, as well as like the iteration gestalt, one of the things I like to take into account to help for a foundation in maintenance of that is think of the total ledger. Think of like a Truman Show situation, right? Mm-hmm. Where you have the Truman Show. On that total ledger, the capacity for a completely uninvolved participant to use inference and model what it is that is going on in your head, I think is important. So like, as your diction of thought or as your narrative of thought moves into directions that are like incomprehensible, it's almost like a necessity of the universe to manifest artifacts of that, hence synchronicity, apophenia, etc., so that upon the total ledger, when referenced by God or aliens or secret agents or just a computer in a million years, who cares, the sun as an observer, regardless, upon that total ledger, it is easier to find that infallible, high fidelity rendering of what is going on in your mind. So if you have like a narrative and then it disappears, my thought usually is that the environment had not supported enough artifacts for it to be capable of inference. Like if no one in the universe can look at you and infer what you're thinking because it's that strayed from reality. Does that make sense? And I think that's when they disappear in a sense. Like that's where those thoughts go, is it's pretty much like either someone prevented an artifact from manifesting itself, or it's the universe's way of asking the universe or you to manage artifacts or build artifacts that will help those kind of narratives maintain their gravity. Because I find that is a very common proclamation or statement from people in many fields and demos, and myself included, whether it's psychedelia, schizophrenia, UAP, even just spirituality. Like the fact that the ephemeral nature of some of the most potent experiences and thoughts just tend to kind of go poof, like you're, Men in Black. I just don't like to imagine, there's really like an entity going around eating them as much as there might be an altruistic end game of like, we need to make artifacts. We need to find more ways to like, even what you're doing now, like manifest an iteration. Cause now there's like a memory card piece that says, aha, same with even simple things like eye twitches, it's all that. The more that you can speak your thoughts, the more that they manifest themselves in the environment, the less likely that they become transient. Anyway, I'm rambling, but that was my thought on that, and I wanted to share it with you, and I hope that you at least can gain some reception from it.
Here's an interesting idea. So, especially as we grow in technology, there's cameras everywhere, there's microphones everywhere. Truman Show idea. There's a camera in front of me. I'm on camera right now. Most of you have cameras in front of you. You're not on them, but you probably have them in and around you in some manner or form. People have baby monitors with cameras, Ring cameras, freaking, cameras throughout their homes and stuff like that. So on and so forth. And they seem to. Maybe they enjoy observing us in some manner, like maybe this is a show for them, like we're entertainment for them. Essentially, they're like, haha, these humans are so funny. They're arguing about they're arguing about their vehicles, crashing into each other or something. They're such silly humans. Ha 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 ha.
Road
Like
rage. Look how we study rats.
We could be pure entertainment for them, and what's another way that another form of entertainment is like video games, for example, and we could be like a video game to the aliens almost. It's like they can observe us and observe what we do on our own, and they can also influence us and partake in the experience that we're having within the observation that they're having. I don't know. It's just very interesting to think about. My mind goes to all sorts of weird places.
And that's beautiful. I think it's beautiful. I think it's healthy to think about these things. Now, there's a difference. There's this fine line between obsession and contemplation, right? Yes.
Yeah, the middle is passion.
Yeah, I can
Probably.
I can feel that.
I don't know. I felt it when I said it. I wanted to add on though. Yeah. Welcome to the simulation. If I remember correctly, manifestation becomes stronger the closer you are to an enlightened state of mind, right?
Yes.
That would make a lot of sense then why this meditation technique is even being included in terms of contacting aliens. You're trying to get to an enlightened state of mind to use your power of manifestation to bring them here, regardless of what type of alien they are. As long as we get to see alien, we get alien.
Exactly. And you don't know if it's from another time, another dimension. Like, this is why Dr. Greer makes me warm and fuzzy inside and out in my entire being, because this guy is doing the work, folks. Yes.
So here's an interesting idea, right? Simulation idea. So what if we are in a simulation and we invented the simulation, but the alien entities within the simulation are trying to either keep us from reinventing the simulation again or purposely guiding us in a non-malevolent way, in a benevolent way, to guide us into another realm of growth instead of taking the path of going down into another simulation, right? Because I would argue that if we are in a simulation, then we are fucking deep. Like simulation within a simulation within a simulation within a simulation within a simulation, and it goes down, 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 and now here we are where we are now, and we could keep going down, or we can take another path and grow in that way, right, where we stay on this level and continue to expand and grow in other ways instead of continuing down the rabbit hole, essentially.
Yes.
Yeah, this alien stuff has everybody fired up, or a lot of people.
Yes.
I love it.
Yeah,
I
it's an
do.
exciting topic. I'm very interested to see what other countries come out with as well. Like I'm
That's
in
what I'm
Canada,
saying.
right? I'm in Canada,
Yes,
right?
I
So
think they're going to be
it's
next.
not
Yes.
it's not going to be long before Canada starts to follow
Yes.
suit, you know,
And
and they're going to
France,
start and
South
people are going
America.
to start having an uproar here. Like people are already really pissed off up here. Like we got a lot of politics and shit going on. But you know, it's only a matter of time before they start coming out up here and talking about it, because it's the same. It's the same with you could apply it to like marijuana, like you guys. I think it was you guys that started it. It was like a
Yeah,
state
look
or
how
two that
quickly it happened.
legalized it, and then
Yeah,
Canada jumped
like
right on
fire.
board, and and legalized it across the whole country, and
Then they're
then
all making hand over
America
fist
continued to
money.
follow suit,
The
and
money's
was
pouring
like,
in. Yep.
yeah, and so
The taxes on weed is insane.
it's the same
Yep.
idea kind of thing.
Yep. Indeed.
Man, that would be such a trip if the only reason, like on a deep government federal level, one of the reasons why that action was even passed. What if they only made marijuana legal in these states just so people can start thinking more abstractly and more freely, to get comfortable with these types of conversations, and then slowly dish out stuff like this over the years until finally we get to aliens? Because now, all, especially in the United States, psychedelics are getting more attention and more
Yep.
attention by the days. And you know what you see when you're on psychedelics, you see all kinds of shit if you take a high dose or whatever. But even on a small dose, your consciousness, your soul, everything just becomes more open and free. And yeah, it's interesting to see what would happen next after the alien stuff. Until it gets to its peak, what would happen after that?
But that could also leave us more susceptible to,
Exactly.
Yep.
To them, like who knows?
Depending on the
Maybe
individual. Yes.
when we're sober, it's more difficult to try and influence and manipulate an individual. But when they're high on a psychedelic of some kind, or marijuana, or what have you, it's more simplified for them to, influence or manipulate.
That's a whole other topic. I think that it's worth setting an event for and doing another showcase like this. Maybe having it pigeon tail around something that happens legislation wise, or we can dovetail it out. But I think it's definitely a profound point, and it's worth looking into further. I have a lot of opinions on that, and our history, and how these things come to be. Sometimes movements happen not by chance, or in reaction, people driving them, and sometimes it's governments posing as people that are influencing movements into actuality. And this is not conspiracy. This is documented. Like, I can't cite it right now. I wasn't prepared for that, but this is all very exciting, and having these conversations, I think, are imperative. I mean, at the end of the day, at the beginning of the day, and throughout the day, we are the ones that have the power, even though it may not seem like it. It's, what we choose to watch, we are the commodity. What we choose to watch, how we choose to spend our time and attention, how we choose to spend our money. This is what makes the world go round. Not literally. I'm
Well,
talking
yeah,
about society. Yeah.
there's still like, this is still so new, right? That in a sense that there are still people out there that are just like, oh no, UFOs and UFO don't exist, or
Exactly.
like they're still in that
Still,
narrative. They're still in that perspective. They're not. They're
100%.
like in that box, and we're over here in outside of the box. Like
There is no box. There's no spawn. Go ahead.
yeah,
Like, it
no,
worked out.
it was just an example.
Yes. Amen. How does everyone feel?
I feel warm. Drink water. It's hot outside. Feels nice.
I'm so thirsty. Thank you for
I think
reminding me.
My brain
I'm
feels
gonna
electric.
try and write a song about the aliens.
Yes.
Yeah, right there. Here we go. It's already influencing culture and art.
This is what I'm
thinking.
saying, folks. This is what I'm saying, folks. Go ahead. I get hyped. I don't mean to interrupt. I'm really passionate. I'm like,
No, I was gonna mention something else. I was talking to somebody earlier. They mentioned something really interesting, which shows just another cool idea. Just like all these other cool ideas that have been shared. I believe they said something along the lines of, if maybe aliens are just watching all of us to see who is the superior type of people in whatever culture they're in, and they pick the most quote unquote superior, then take them and leave everybody else, or give them more power and see what they can do with all of this technology to see how far they get, and leave the rest of them in the dust.
That's
whatever happens.
It's very interesting to think about it that way.
Yes.
Yeah, that's very, very interesting.
Sounds like a story from Star Trek, but I agree. I think it feels sometimes this way. The spiritual awakening process almost feels like you've got a bunch of clipboards and lab coats around you, kind of giving you a KPI rating on how you're progressing on your path. So yeah, maybe we are all lab rats of an alien experiment. If that's the case, I'm grateful because wow, it's really a fun experience. Painful but fun. So
what if the aliens are higher consciousness? How's that for a plot twist?
I think that makes more sense than anything, to be quite honest.
It's a beautiful thing.
I already presumed as much.
Yeah, like all of our higher selves take these material forms and they're aliens.
That's why we're connected.
That makes sense to me.
There was something mentioned in a book called yeah, okay, I'll find the name later, but basically this astral projecting healer type, he goes to some geomagnetic spot and he finds the sort of higher being there. He also went to, I also saw a UFO once, and it was several of these higher beings. They were, having this group meditation, which made them look like a UFO, so they could help alter the trajectory of a satellite that was crashing.
What?
That's powerful.
Yes.
I don't remember.
Can you say that again? Is that okay? Sorry, my connection dropped and I missed it, and I'm really curious by Sheba's reaction.
Yeah, Sheba, could you repeat that? I'll find the book.
Yeah, I can only paraphrase because I'm still processing. So he's saying that these people gathered around for a specific purpose and they formed the shape of a saucer by gathering in a circle and meditating. That's what I heard.
Okay.
Am I mistaken?
And then they use that power to move the trajectory of a satellite or something to go some other way using the power of their belief in the meditation and also energy being cultivated.
Sent the book in question.
So if the crafts are, traveling with this type of structure, imagine if we sit around in this type of structure. And if you look at ancient history, the circle is definitely profound. People standing in a circle, you see it across all of faiths. You see it across all practices, including occult or pagan, or the list goes on and on. Even in dancing, ceremonial, even in tribal, dancing around the fire, circles, sitting in circles. This is very profound. Could even allude to ancient geometry, sacred geometry. This, all of it is connected. My heart is just tingling right now. Yes.
Yeah, the idea just popped into me just now. Like, what if crop circles are actually alien sigils that have been gifted to farmers or whatever, so they can change the energy structure of the earth or some way, so it can be more sustainable for aliens.
Or saving us.
Yeah.
Sigils that are protecting us. Yes.
Or.
Yeah, protecting us from. I think it's important.
You go.
I think it's sorry. I think it's important for us to recognize that there are most likely malevolent beings and benevolent beings within the universe. And it there are benevolent beings that are here to help us and guide us and protect us even or what have you. And then there are malevolent beings that maybe hate us for whatever reason or dislike us or want our destruction or our ending or what have you, so
Yeah.
I think it's important to remember that.
Can I talk about
To
one of
some,
my
yeah,
experiences?
Please.
go for
Yeah,
it.
okay. So I've actually had encounters with malevolent ETs. It was like in the astral. So I was lucid dreaming, and then I was in this diner, and there was someone waiting for me, and it was a woman, and we were going to talk about something, but it just seemed like really surreal. Like I knew I was dreaming, but it didn't feel like a normal lucid dream even. And then so I was like, wait, something's off about this. And then it's like the woman's face like dramatically changed and it turned into like the typical gray face with like the almond eyes, and it was like it had like a black shadow aura around it. I guess it was like it was dark, man. And then I woke up, but it felt like my energy was blocked basically for a moment. Yeah,
Can
and
you
then I
expound
did
upon
That
that?
brings up a
What do you mean
question
your
right
energy
there.
was blocked? Yeah.
like it just felt because I was trying to like protect myself energetically, and it was like it was being clogged up as it was like trying to exit me so that I could channel it. Does that make sense?
Mm.
Yeah, and then so I did something, and basically I got that it killed the being. And then yeah, that was that. And
I
I was
thought of a
shook.
question when you brought up the astral realm.
Yeah.
What if the beings that inhabit the astral realm that we access are essentially some form of alien in itself?
Well, they all are, like they're different species. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about specifically ET 3D being that use technology to go into 4D.
A common theme that I've noticed in my lucid dreams, or very vivid dreams, is the entities that reside within the astral realm that I encounter. In many cases, I've caught them shape-shifting. They're shapeshifters. And I've seen them in their actual forms, and they're it's hard to describe. But they are very alien-like, in a sense. And they shapeshift into whatever you're kind of projecting onto them, in a sense. Like you're thinking of your dad, let's say, who passed away, and so the entity will shapeshift into the image that is your father and behave and act as though it is your father and have that experience with you. Although it is not your father, it's a shape-shifting entity that is just disguising itself as your father, essentially. I don't know. I think there's something there. I think there's something there.
I think that's why it was shapeshifted as a woman, because I guess like I was thinking about relationship stuff at the time. It was almost like
I've had sexual encounters with these beings in these dreams or astral realm, and I have encountered scenarios where I was observing their private areas, and they weren't human. They weren't human private areas, but they morphed into human private areas, but they weren't originally a human private area, or it kind of loses its consistency, and then it kind of morphs out of being that to back to being that, like, kind of thing. So I don't know. It's could be like like another level of like procreation or something like that. I mean, what's that?
What did it actually look like? Like, what did you actually see though? Like, what did it look like?
I'm trying to put it into like something that you could relate it to. Kind of like a, how do I describe it? I don't know how to describe it. It's like it's nothing that I've ever experienced it in this realm of existence, like in my waking reality. So like it's really hard to describe what
Sure. I
their
mean,
physical
other
appearance.
than I mean, I'm talking about the genitalia area that you're mentioning specifically. What I would suggest is just try and use words surrounding it. If you haven't got an accurate description, which is completely understandable, all things considered.
So in
Maybe
terms of that,
freely, you will translate.
you know, if you imagine like a female vagina, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
and then now imagine just like a hole, like a hole, and in like imagine like a hole in like the human body. It's just like a hole, and there's no like clitoral there's like no clitoris or anything. It's just like a hole, and
Mm-hmm.
and they have some form of a G spot, I guess, in the hole, but they have no like clitoris or anything like that.
Sure. So no external genitalia, basically, all internalized.
Not really. Not that I could really tell. No.
Okay.
And
And what did you?
also
Sorry.
very odd, but very bushy.
Okay.
Very
And so
like lots of like a ring of bush growing around the hole, like a bush that grows around the hole, kind of thing. Um, but it has the capability of morphing into a human vagina that looks like a human vagina. You know.
So, going back to the whole, you said they have a G spot. So, if you can't see it, then that means that you were aware of something that you couldn't see. So, if you can focus on just that sentence, if you were aware of something you couldn't see, what were your thoughts about the purpose or function of them having an internalized G spot? I mean, we know what we concluded is for us. What did you conclude it was for them? Did you have anything there?
Well, because there's still like they're beings that live in this realm of existence, right? And so they still have interactions with one another that are semi-human like in a sense. Um So like they still want to, they want to procreate and so on and so forth. And it's like, um, what's a method that they could use to raise their frequency um or push their species forward in a sense. It's like, okay, well, why don't we procreate with these human entities that seem to visit our realm when they go to sleep, um
But yeah, like, sorry, moving back again to the whole, this is the structure, and it's similar to but different to ours, and then also their purpose and their intelligence is going to be by proxy similar and different to ours. So this idea, this implication that they have a G spot, what did you get any idea of what their function for it is? Like what they is that question coming across clear enough? Am I adding enough words to that to make sense of what I'm asking?
well, what is I would assume it has the same function as why human women have a G spot.
Well, of why we have this is for sexual pleasure. But if you're in the spiritual game and you're following things from a tantric perspective, where sexual pleasure is just the beginning, and a side benefit of transmutation of life force energy. And so then we have a species where you're describing the genitalia, where the external pleasure devices are absent. However, the deeper aspect that ties into tantra is present.
Mm-hmm.
Do you get where I'm coming from?
I think so. I'm not sure. I'm not sure why. I've
I
never
think,
really thought about it deeper than that. Really, it was more of an observation, and I was
sure.
like, oh well, that's weird.
Welcome to my brain. Welcome to my brain. I go down every rabbit hole. But so the reason why I think that this is relevant is because that is definitely in line with the idea of the sexual processes and how we experience them is from a very unhealed fashion, because it's still in this state of pleasure state, which is a craving for temporary respite from suffering. And then when you look at the way that we psychologically have learned about our own sexuality, that a lot of our trauma comes out in behaviors that we call to be sexual preferences and kinks and all of this kind of stuff. And so then you have a species that's of a higher intelligence presenting itself to you in a visual fashion, where the pleasure state aspects, which is the unhealed state aspects, are absent, but the healed state, which is the idea of this interaction with a energetic orgasm that creates a unified and healing experience, and a transcendental experience for those who can consciously participate in it, either whether they're doing it collaboratively with a person or they're doing it internally within their own energies in meditative states, that matches up with what you're saying. In my opinion, I'm not saying from, I'm sure anyone could pick that apart from I've read this and I know this about biology or whatever part, but from how I'm seeing it from a spiritual perspective, I think it makes sense.
But I know there are also different levels to it, though, I think, because I've had experiences in the astral realm with other entities that weren't like that as well, that were more like I've had experiences with dream characters that were more like they look like people, but for example, there was a girl in the dream who was attracted to me, and she looked very pretty, but she like stuck her tongue out at me. But when she stuck her tongue out at me, her tongue was a snake's tongue, for example, and it was very long. It was like a very long snake's tongue that like she's like stuck out of her mouth at me, and she was like, I don't know, very attracted to me or whatever, and yeah, so like I don't know, like I've dealt with other entities as well in the astral realm, so I don't know. I think there's different levels to it.
Well, we all know. Sorry, did I hear my name?
Oh yeah, I was gonna add on to what Mike's and Mike was saying. I've had sexual encounters with astral beings too, and like I've actually experienced them climaxing.
Mm-hmm.
So when that happened, there was sort of an opening of energy. I felt like there was a union between us, and that energy was being transmuted in that space in a positive way as she climaxed. So I feel like that sort of answers your question. Like they
For
view
sure.
sex as a deeper thing.
Well, this is the thing. Like, okay, so one of my original meditation teachers used to make a bit of a joke. He's an abbot of a monastery, and he used to make a bit of a joke that monks don't need sex because we have something better than it. And I've got I've had firsthand experiences about what he's talking about. It's something that they call in Buddhism called jhana. And essentially, you could have fun and label it as an energetic orgasm, and that's exactly what they do in metaphysical communities. They call it an energetic orgasm. And so when you talk about it from the idea of energy work, it's transmutation of energy. And then when you talk about that snake representation, that's about, Kundalini energy, which is essentially energy being released and discharged out of the spinal cord to a greater state of consciousness, And so, yeah, I mean, did you find that you got some interesting insights after that experience by any chance?
No, not really. I mean, some of the time I do. I guess, okay, I'll rephrase that. I don't remember specifically my insights, but I was in a state of mind to integrate more, which I think I did. Like, I got something that was grounding towards me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I could say that would be something that I would say about the spiritual experiences I've had with energetic orgasm or jhana or whatever you want to call it through meditation as well. Like my first experience was just so polarizing because it was like an inner child healing experience in a meditation hall after a 10-day silent retreat with about another 99 people who, that's not the place that you all of a sudden want to start oohing and eyeing, And it didn't feel like that. It did not feel like that. It's kind of like if you imagine writing the best, most graceful and elegant novel about just the euphoria of connecting with someone in an intimate way like that. It's very much a blissful state. It's not some kind of hormonal driven sexuality experience, and so that's very intrinsic to what I experienced. But, well, it's not the isolated experience, it's just the first one. And it was at the same time as I was having visions of holding my inner child in my first bona fide experience with that too. And so I found it quite conflicting at first to pull out of that and realize, one, this has happened in a meditation hall. So and it was probably the strongest kind of onboarding of that reaction I've had in my life. It surpasses any physical experience that I've had in relationships. And so there was that. There was the whole where I am and where it was happening and why it was happening. And then there was the whole, it was involving an inner child release, the release that you're experiencing from sexuality, we associate with that endpoint of an orgasm, the physical release of discharges that causes, fertility to form. But then there's that whole, if you bring it into the meditative experience, was a release of an early childhood trauma that caused such a burst of euphoria that I experienced something that was only could be described as best as, from a rudimentary fashion, a precursor to an orgasm. But there was no coming out of it with a sense of shame, guilt of what the hell of a sexual nature at all. There was no sexuality associated with it. It was just the bliss state. And the most interesting part, and this is not an isolated occurrence either, is that after I stood up and gathered myself when the meditation broke and thought, oh my God, I can't make eye contact with anybody. What the fuck was that? Then suddenly I have a few women run out of a crowd of 100 people. We've been there silent for 10 days. None of us know each other. Coming up to me all flushed and red cheeked going, oh my God, it happened to you too. And I'm looking at them going, one, how did you know? Number two, what do you mean it happened to me? Two, number three, why are you all coming to me? And so I'm like standing there in the muck of that, turning around and saying these things to them in a garbled confusion, and then they're all saying the same stuff back. You can't, unless this was some elaborate joke, and it's very unlikely at a meditation retreat in a monastery someone's going to do that after 10-day retreat. That's psychopathy. But you couldn't collaborate it with 5 people like this, all saying, oh, we felt the energy coming off of you and it popped us off like that. You know, and you're just sitting there just going, what's going on? How is this possible? So, yeah, I think it all matches up. It definitely does. Your experiences, to me, validate the experiences that I've had in just such different ways.
Would anyone else like to share their perspective, experience, before we draw this to a close? Any questions?
I would like to hear somebody's thoughts on something that happened to me yesterday. And it was stream related and synchronicity related. So before that hearing that happened yesterday about the aliens, like I found out about it the moment like a couple minutes after I woke up. But I had a dream that I saw that I was just in a regular everyday town or whatever. And I looked up in the sky and it was bright as day. There was 2 moons. I saw the planet Mercury. I saw Uranus and I saw Neptune. And then I saw a military helicopter. And they were pointing their guns up towards this alien spacecraft. And I remember that they shot it down. And when it was shot down, I looked what was in that craft, and it was this being made out of this green looking slime. And I looked at it, and it said, or we were both like terrified of each other at first, because I guess this was the first time that we've encountered any of our kind. And it looked like it was dying, and it pointed towards the next living thing other than me or it, and it was this little plant. And so I put it next to the plant, and it went inside of the plant, and it became the plant and absorbed all of its nutrients. And then it said that this body isn't compatible with me. Not like with words, but just emotionally, telepathically, it conveyed that to me. And then I said, well, how about this rabbit? So I took this slime thing towards a rabbit, then it possessed the rabbit, and then it took all of its life force away. And also suggested that this being isn't compatible with me. And then I looked across the street, and there was this house full of wild cats. There was like 2 orange ones, 1 black one, a couple other cats. And then I told it, okay, why don't you go over there and see if one of those cats is compatible with you. But before I knew it, I woke up. And then 20 minutes or so later, I found out about the hearing about aliens. And I didn't know about it before that. Like this is the first that I even heard about it. And I was like, whoa, that's intense. Why did that happen? Synchronicity. And I want to ask, what are y'all's thoughts on that?
Well, when you were saying about the not compatible with me part, did you mean that it was saying not compatible with me, or you were saying not compatible? It was saying you were not compatible with
No.
animal.
This alien thing was saying it was not compatible with the plant that it put it next to, because it was dying and it needed some energy. And so
it needed an energetic donor.
I don't know, like it just needed to possess something to like go in its body, absorb all their nutrients, and then to see if that body was compatible with them so they can live in it. And the rabbit and the green plant wasn't, compatible with its own existence. and I pointed towards a bunch of cats and see if those are compatible with it. Before I knew it, I woke up. It was weird because it didn't like attack me.
Where it ended on the whole, it was cats, I thought was quite interesting because, you know, that you can buy into something and say cat is just any other animal, or you can play the game of all the Egyptians and the cats and all of that kind of stuff, you know. So they knew a lot about this kind of spiritual path, and they also had a big affiliation with cats for a reason, I'm sure. I doubt that they would have just gone, we like cats. So, yeah, I find that interesting. And, you know, the whole energy side of things, you know, I've got a whole thing I'm curious about when it comes to cats and toxoplasmosis as well, because it's really interesting how, you know, animals get the toxoplasmosis virus and all of a sudden lose their fear inhibitions at a time where apparently there's a big percentage of the human population who have toxoplasmosis, and we're also doing our shadow work. You know, and what did they say in ancient Egypt the cats were? What spiritual role did they hold? That they kind of the guardians of the gateway between the two realms?
This could be even deeper than we could ever imagine.
It is deeper than we imagine. Of course it is. If it wasn't, then we'd all know what's going on by now. Instead of speculating.
Like, for all we know, to get back sort of onto the alien topic a little bit, for all we know, the aliens are manipulating us. Some higher being is manipulating the aliens. Some higher being than that is manipulating that higher being, and so on and so forth. You know, and it just goes down the infinite chain of beings that are manipulating each other, all in this grand game that's playing out here.
Yeah, sure.
I have a question, Tori. Are you there?
No, what's the question?
Yes, about your dream. You said that the essence was drained. Can you elaborate on that? Or no, you said the energy, the power was drained, something like that.
Yeah, like the nutrients.
The life force.
The body.
You said the life force is what you said. Yeah. So can you elaborate on that? Like what you mean and how you knew this?
Well, I saw it. So I saw that this slime alien thing. It looked like it was dying because it got shot down by a military helicopter.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I encountered it, it was afraid of me, and I was afraid of it.
Yeah.
And I noticed that it was dying and it needed to live somehow, and it pointed towards the plant, I believe, and then I grabbed it, and I pointed towards the plant, and I grabbed it, and then I just put it towards the plant, and it possessed the plant, or went inside of the plant, and it started going inside of the plant and taking the form of the plant. Think about it this way: it became like the blood of the plant, like how blood is within us.
Yes.
It became that, and then it just sucked all of the nutrients away until the plant dwindled and died. Until it became,
so it was like an alchemical, like alchemy happening.
Yeah. There was like an alchemy going on right there, where it just took its life force away, and then the plant's life force became the slime alien thing's life force.
Did the plant disintegrate? Did it fall to the side, shriveled? Did it become the thing?
It just became dead. Like after it just became all brown. Like? It just became like how it's
dead
fall
roses.
Or whatever. Yeah.
Like a bouquet of flowers 2 weeks in or something.
Yeah.
Wow.
But then, like it said, it gave the suggestion that plant's body wasn't compatible with this alien body. And so it needed to find another host, repeatedly until it could find its compatible body so it can exist here, probably because the Earth's atmosphere, maybe the Earth's atmosphere wasn't compatible with it, or the guns that shot down the alien really damaged it. Either way, it was an interesting dream. I thought I'd bring it up.
Sounds? Yes, please. I still have questions, if that's okay.
Yeah, go for it. The sounds? I didn't hear any sounds.
What about smells?
Smells? Yeah, that's a good question. I don't remember the smells. I don't think there were smells. If there were, then I would have remembered. It was the temperature. Yeah, that was interesting. It felt like a very comfortable day. It wasn't too hot, too cool. It's just a very balanced day, temperature-wise. That's all. That's what I can remember about the temperature.
Okay. Thank you for sharing.
Did you get anything out of the smells, the temperature part?
I was curious, just in general, because usually another being, we would smell to another being. I would think another being would smell to us. You know what I mean? All
Yeah.
considering the biologics of it all. How are you feeling emotionally, spiritually, anxiety-wise? Did you feel in danger? Did you feel a familiarity? Did you know what it was doing alchemically? Or did you have to figure it out?
Yeah, I'd say my intuition guided me there. Like I mean, it was my first time encountering this, so I didn't necessarily consciously, with logic, didn't know what to do, but intuitively, I felt what was going on, and so
You were aware.
Yeah.
Do you feel as though you connected with this being? Were you
Yeah,
scared?
I felt like I connected with this being the moment that I felt like I was terrified of it, and it was terrified of me. We definitely connected
But
on
that
that
was
level.
initially. What
Yeah, and then the
happened to the?
response was to save its life, because I definitely, yeah. So I remember this part. In that dream, I definitely felt sad that the alien was going to die or something was going to happen. And I felt like it's suffering because it was afraid of like dying in that moment. Because it looked like a very small, green, slimy alien. I don't know how old it was. Maybe it was like I don't know. And then that's what I can remember. Part of me
No sounds?
would have liked to see the end of the dream. I believe I did hear the gunshots. Actually, yes. Yeah. Back to the sounds, I do believe I did hear gunshots, yeah. That part definitely spoke to me.
I'm gonna move down to the meditation garden and do a hemi-sync meditation on aliens if anybody wants to join.
Nice.
Yeah, sounds great.
Beautiful.
But yeah, it was an interesting experience, and I thought it was very powerful in terms of the synchronicity that I got after I woke up, maybe 20 or so minutes afterward, about the alien hearing.
That's huge. I wonder what the green being represents.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I still don't know what it means.
I feel like there's definitely something there, Satori.
Yeah, I noticed like its eyes, like they were all black, two big black circles, and then it had a smile made out of this black substance. I don't know what it was.
It's smiling.
Or it had a mouth. I wouldn't say it was smiling, but it had a mouth.
Did you guys? You said you looked into each other's eyes when you met, and you could feel that the being was scared of you as much as you were scared of the being.
Yeah. Yeah, those were an intense few moments.
To the eyes, like you guys looking in each other's eyes, or?
Yeah, for a moment, I'd say maybe a couple seconds. And then I noticed it looked like it was dying.
My goodness. And you woke up feeling what?
I woke up feeling a little confused as to what that was because I've never had a dream like that before. The only other time I've ever encountered an alien type of creature was last year whenever I was microdosing LSD. And one of the things that happens when you microdose psychedelics or take psychedelics is that your dreams are affected by a really high degree. And what happened to me was that I had a dream about this green alien cat, which is funny because that's how it ended. This dream, I told this green slime thing to go see if this cat is compatible with its body. That's another thing that I thought was interesting.
It's definitely correlation.
Yeah, I don't know what to do with this information, but I thought it'd be cool to share and see if anybody got something out of it.
Beautiful. I'm processing it. I definitely get a connection between you and the being, and the being letting you see this and allowing. I think, you say your intuition. I think it a lot has to do with the being communicating to you as well, through your intuition, what's happening. I mean, it's part of it's like how we connect. You know what I mean? Like people, there's an awareness there, and I think to see the plant and to then know that it needs another compatible thing, I think that there's communication happening there. Now, relative to the announcement or to the hearing, that's a
Yeah, that's the
whole
part
other
that
thing.
kind of blew my mind. Yeah.
Woo! Yes, I'm gonna have to chew on that one.
This might sound like a silly quip, but I just want to say it anyway. You asked if anyone's got a response about your dreams. I just find it really interesting how aliens are green, and then this whole notion of the idea of the color of the matrix is green as well.
Yeah.
And chlorophyll of the plant.
And the color of the heart chakra.
And yep,
The
and it's
anahata.
trying to basically, this idea of it experiencing a blood transfusion on an energetic level, and then we've got green being the color, and it's ectoplasmic as well, which means that it's formless in a way. It's got form, but it's also simultaneously formless. I think it's all very interesting.
Yeah, hopefully I get a meaning out of this later in the future. Because I'm still processing it.
Yeah.
But yeah, any other thoughts, questions, ideas, expressions, and feelings, and thoughts, and thingies?
This is what I have to say. Oh my goodness. Wow. This has been amazing. Honestly. Would anyone else like to share or inquire or state at this time? Well, it sounds like that's a wrap on this event of Let's Talk About It post UAP congressional hearing. I'd like to thank all the people who've been part of this, all the people who were part of the hearing, all the people of the people of the people who've experienced contact, who've fathomed the idea of life beyond, those that have not, and everything in between. We are all one. And all of our beliefs and opinions matter. And it's, through our diversity and through our interactivity that we learn from each other and grow. And the more we learn, the more we grow, the more we know. We're not alone, folks. We are more than our minds. Now, shall we all talk like an alien on our way out?
Yeah, I was about to say that too. On this episode of talking about aliens, we'll end it with talking like aliens.
Yeah, I like it. Lead the way.
Okay.
I missed some, but I want to thank you for sharing. It was very interesting. I missed some. I just got back, but I want to say thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
It was very interesting.
Yes, and this is recorded. You know, I'm going to try to package this up tonight because this is a very timely thing. I think it's important for, you know, this type of open dialogue to happen. And, you know, the best way we can do it is share what we do here with the world and let the universe take its course. Just take us away, Satori.
All right, guys, let's talk like an alien. End this episode about talking about aliens by talking like an alien.
Very fun.
And that's a taste. For more, check out our free flowing channel for our Talk Like an Alien 2.0. For more, and experience for yourself this amazing meditation that goes far beyond any meditation I've ever experienced. And it's very apropos, all things considered. Thank you. Much love.
Back in the